Woodpecker Studio in the great state of New Hampshire. Welcome to the Sounds Like a Search and Rescue podcast, where we discuss all things related to hiking and search and rescue in the White Mountains of New Hampshire. Here are your hosts, Mike and Stump.
All right, Stomp, welcome to episode 84. I'm cracking a brew here, and we've got Keith. You ruined his plans for tonight, so you need to apologize.
Well, what do you mean? The outage?
Well, we were supposed to meet on Tuesday night, and now we're meeting tonight, and he's missing the football game.
I don't know what happened, but our internet provider had a major outage, and it was like 60% of the region was out. So thank you so much for last minute, Keith, rearranging so you could show up for this tonight, and Mike as well. Oh, by the way, if you hear the beast at the door, that's a crazy cat named Daphne, so we cannot let her in because she'll be all over you. So I've taken that precaution anyway.
All right, well, I'm glad we're back. We took a little bit of a break here, so just for the audience, just a little scheduling note. So we are going to be having episodes for December 2nd, 9th, and 16th, and then, Stomp, I haven't even told you this, but we're going to take off the 23rd and the 30th, and then be back on the 6th. So we're going to take that Christmas break. I'm going on vacation anyway,
nice. So
I'm not going to be
around.
Okay,
sounds good. Thanks for letting me know.
Okay, so, no problem. That's our schedule now. But Stomp, I was on. We'll talk a little bit about. We'll talk a little bit about the events over the last week or two. But I was on Facebook pretty heavily for the last week or two, and I did catch up with. There's a group. There's two 4,000 footer groups, and I usually go on one of them. I think I go on the Eric's group, like hike the 4,000 footers. But there's another group that's like of equal size that I never go on. I don't know why, but I went on there. And I noticed that there was some listeners that had posted a picture of them on Welsh Dicky, and her name's Samantha, so I won't give her last name.
Okay.
But her and her friend Stacy were on Welsh Dicky in October, so that's how I just don't go on this group, so I didn't see it. But they posted a picture, tagged us, and they were asking if they found the Woodpecker Studio. So they were pretty close. I think they're pointing right to it in the picture. So
see, I told you they're triangulating.
Yes, I know. So Samantha and Stacy, I'll tell you're close.
You're very close. Like within what, quarter mile? In some direction, I'm not quite sure.
Yeah, exactly. But anyway, Stump, we have breaking news we always talk about beers, not the beers that you drink, but the beers that can that hibernate and can kill you. So there was a bear attack in Goffstown. Did you read about this?
No, I did not. Goffstown, New Hampshire.
Goffstown, New Hampshire.
Oh, wow. See, that's close to home. So, yeah, what happened?
Yeah, so it was, it didn't say how old this gentleman is, but gentleman was walking his 10-year-old terrier. So gentleman's name was Jim, and the dog's name was Toby, and they were attacked by a bear outside of their New Hampshire home. So he was walking around. He saw two bears staring at him. He panicked. I guess he let the dog go out around 7. Yeah. And then he heard some noise. He ran out of the house, and he saw a bear with two cubs. So obviously the bear was, I think, trying to protect the cubs. So the bear took a swipe at the dog, and then the guy came to try to rescue the dog, and the bear, I guess, swiped him. The human got off with like just a little bit of a scrape, but Toby the dog got a little bit of an injury. So they both ran back in the house and walked away. And I think Toby had to take a trip to the vet. No broken bones. But he was torn up a little bit. So all's well that ends well. They went to the Rockingham Emergency Veterinary Hospital. So shout out to them for putting Toby back together. And that's a first. I haven't really heard of a bear attack in New Hampshire in a while.
Yeah, it's probably a first for me. I've not heard of any either. Have you, Keith?
No, and Goffstown's in my neighborhood. I mean, I'm from New Boston. We're right next door.
Okay.
I spent a lot of time in Goffstown. So when did that happen? That seems to be that's breaking news, you said.
Yeah, it was. I can't see the date on the article here right now, actually. But I picked it up. I think I picked it up on Reddit. Like it says Tuesday, so like a couple days ago. So very interesting.
Did you get that off of the Fish and Game site or just the regular news?
I didn't. It is on MSN.com.
Oh, okay.
So,
Yep.
I don't know. I'll have to look around and see if there's it says WBZ Channel 4 Boston.
Interesting.
But anyway, Stomp, we might as well just address, we had an incident last week where a young hiker, unfortunately, was missing. There was a long search that was undertaken, and unfortunately, Emily Sotelo did not survive this hike. So we've got a sort of a tribute at the end of the show here, but I've talked to Stomp a little bit about this, and I think just given the fact that we're in such close proximity to when this happened, and it's a little bit raw, I think that, there will be a time for us to sort of look back and talk about how, taking a look at it and sort of saying like, okay, what are some things that we can learn from this? But right now, I don't think that we want to get into a deep dive on this. It's just we just need a little bit more time to process and just let some distance go by before we get into a lot of detail. It's just obviously, like, I think the search and rescue team members, the family, it's been a difficult couple of weeks for everybody. So we will post Emily's obituary in the show notes, and then the family has put in the obituary they want to encourage everybody to donate to the search and rescue organizations that helped. So we'll include links to all of those organizations, and if you're sort of feeling like I'm feeling and really sad about it and hoping that feeling like what can I do about this, I think donating to the search and rescue organizations is a good way to sort of take action if you need to. Anything to add, Stomp, or you want to?
Well, today was her funeral, so just deepest condolences to the family, and you'll be in thoughts and prayers for sure.
Yeah, most definitely, and we will definitely address it, but I think we're going to take a little bit of time and make sure that we have everything in order before we get into a deep dive on it. All right, so moving on, Stomp, I think we've got some new sponsors that we've got to add here. So I think we're going to get into just splitting up the sponsors a little bit just so that we're not doing a bunch of commercials. So do you want to start? I think we got Eastern Mountain Sports first.
Yeah. Quick and simple. EMS, your Northeast go-to for outdoor gear, guidance, education, and more since 1967. Check them out at ems.com.
All right. So, Stomp, I have an update on the buddy hike that I organized. I don't know how I got myself roped into this situation, but you need to come with me now.
Oh, yeah, I plan to. I've got it written in the calendar, so it's all good. What's the update? Oh, he's trying to rope you into it, too.
Yeah, I need help. So 40 people have signed up for this hike on Saturday, January 14th on Mount Pierce, and luckily, I've got some good experienced hikers. So Julie, who's one of the admins from the Hiking Buddies, and a couple of other folks are going to step in and lead groups. So we're splitting the groups up into like less than 10 people so that we can manage it. But the plan will be that we're going to go to Rek-lis Brewing afterwards.
Oh, I didn't know that.
If you're a listener and you want to come hang out, like, don't come to Pierce and hike with us. We're full. But go to Rek-lis after your hike. And
that's for the overflow crowd.
Yeah, exactly.
Gotcha.
Exactly. But I put out a questionnaire basically trying to get everyone's pace, their preference on starting times, so we can split them up, and then sort of an idea on whether or not anybody needs any gear. So I'm going full guide service here, Stomp.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, I wish you luck.
What do you mean you wish me luck? You're coming.
Oh, just like Cheswick said, it sounds like a search and rescue.
It could be. Well, that's what I need to, I got to tell everyone, look, no matter what happens, we're carrying people off the mountain. We cannot get onto the Fish and Game news reports.
Right. Yeah, everything will be fine.
Yes. Okay. All right, Stomp. So a couple of things here I had in my notes before we get into talking with Keith here. So holiday shopping reminders. So now's the time of the year where I've had a few people reach out to me to be like, hey, I want to get something for my hiker friend. What do you suggest? So a couple of sites I want to point out to people that they can go to, especially with the search and rescue event that happened in the last week or two. A lot of talk about GPS, maps, electronics, safety devices, personal locator beacons. If you're looking to research that stuff, definitely check out Dave Dillon. He was on, I think, like episode 40. He was in the 40s or whatever, but he has a site called Chase the Summit. He does a bunch of reviews on different electronics. He's got watches, gadgets,
great site.
GPS devices, personal locator beacons, the whole deal.
Yeah, very solid. Super professional.
Yeah, exactly. And then if you're looking for ideas on winter hiking or any sort of gear, anytime I'm thinking about like I need to buy something new, there's like two things that I do. I will go on to a site called Section Hiker, which is Phil Warner runs it. And what Phil does is he's got reviews on different things, like anything to do with hiking, but he does these top 10 lists. So if you need boots, or if you need snowshoes, or if you need a winter tent, or you need a backpack, like he just puts together like a top 10 list.
Yeah.
And like 95% of the time, the top 10 list is, he's going to have enough variety in there, and he has male, female, and it's a great site to go to. So I typically will go there and then try to shop through, if it's an online store, I'll usually go through his link so he gets a little bit of credit and does the sale. And then the other place that I typically will go to is the Trek website, and they have a gear list for the Appalachian Trail, and then they also have like a thru hiker survey that they do. We're talking about like what the popular gear is. So there's a bunch of resources. I will link those in the show notes. But again, Chase the Summit for gadgets, Section Hiker for gear, and then if that doesn't solve everything you need, then check out the Trek and go to the Appalachian Trail gear list or their hiker surveys.
Excellent. Any gift ideas we can stuff in a stocking? That's what I've decided to do with Mrs. Stomp. We're just going to stuff stockings this season.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like Mrs. Stomp needs a new nice winter jacket.
Oh, how'd you know about that? Did I tell you about that?
No, I have a vibe.
That's a really good guess, actually. We've been
they
chatting.
all need jackets.
Wow, I'm impressed.
Yeah, and then the last thing when it comes to shopping, just a reminder that Fish and Game has a licensing center that is located in Concord, and I'll include the address on the show notes, but it's on 11 Hazen Drive in Concord, and they actually sell merchandise. So you can get hats, T-shirts, coffee. Ooh, you can get her a coffee mug with Fish and Game on it.
That's good. So romantic, right, Keith?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah,
but you can get Hike Safe card there, and then you can get your merchandise stuff. So definitely check that out. I was looking to see if you could buy online. You can't get anything online. You have to go to Concord.
Okay. So what were we gonna say?
I have some ideas what you can put in a stocking that would be wonderful for the missus. I just
Like a new book?
Sure.
Oh yes. Yes, we will get to that. We will definitely get to that.
That's great.
And then a couple of other reminders. We already talked about the New Hampshire Outdoor Council. One of the other things that you can donate to that's come up, especially with the recent search activity that's been going on, is donating the canine rescue. So I'll include that in the show notes as well. They'll take donations.
Nice.
Yeah. Very good, Stomp. And then I think next update that we have here is you've got a sticker update.
Yeah. Ski Fanatics right down here in Campton, New Hampshire, off of exit 28. They've been kind enough to let us be a sticker depot. So if you're in the neighborhood, come on down to Ski Fanatics and grab a free sticker, say hi, and check out all the stuff they have there. Have you ever been in there, Keith? That's actually a really nice store.
I have not, no.
It's right down, right off the exit. Can't miss it. It's by the gas stations, the dunks. And in the summer they do the floats, tons of stuff in the winter. But the clothing and the gear in there is actually really top tier. So anyway, support local business.
I'll check it out.
And yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. And then as far as stickers go, also I have the link to sign up for stickers in the show notes. I put out the last shipment about a week ago, so if you sign up for stickers, I'll probably do it around the new year, so you'll be waiting a little while. But I'll get to it eventually.
Yeah. It's the shipping issues. It's all backed up.
Exactly. All right.
They're coming in from China to California, so it takes a couple months to come through.
Yes. Pop culture talk, Stomp, although this isn't really pop culture, but like you put in a notice about the ice castles in Lincoln. I've never been there. What's it like?
Oh, it's sort of crazy. I mean, it's very impressive. They have obviously the massive ice glaciers that they build, and after the last rainstorm over the last few days, I can't imagine what shape they're in at the moment. But they do all kinds of cool stuff. Food, entertainment. They'll have artists with, juggling flame artifacts and whatever else. And it's really cool. It's a nice time. But this year they're adding a new feature which may enhance it a bit. And it's called ETOH, or alcohol. So that's pretty interesting. I mean, the prior years they would serve sort of like lukewarm chocolate milk, hot chocolate, but it was like lukewarm. So it was like warm chocolates. So anyway, hopefully they've upped their game in the chocolate department. But yeah, if you go into the ice castles, you can get rocked and go check out the glowing glaciers.
Sounds dangerous.
It sure does. I don't know.
You'll have to report back on how that is. I see a lot of ton of people over there. Oh, you're not
no,
going?
I've been there, done that. Yeah. I mean, if you take the kids, it's good. But yeah, as an adult, I'm like,
yeah, that looks like a one and done. Yeah. Yeah. I do see a lot of people posting on social media that they're like there. And they all look like they need a drink after being there with their kids.
Oh,
so this
sure.
should work out pretty well.
Yeah, sort of like the Storyland effect.
Yes.
Yeah, gotcha.
Yeah. Okay. Stomp. So you have another thing here. So you've got a lawsuit. So this is in, and I guess this applies to like hiking.
Not me personally.
Well, you don't have a lawsuit, but you posted an article about a lawsuit about a lady who is suing the Velveeta cheese company.
Couldn't resist.
And I think this will appeal to two populations: the hikers,
Absolutely.
because like people will have mac and cheese, and then anybody that listens to us that might be like a pothead type of person will like mac and cheese, I think. So a woman is suing the Velveeta cheese company because these microwave packets apparently don't heat up in the time that's prescribed on the package. So it says it's like 3 minutes and they don't heat up fast enough in the microwave.
Yeah, well, it sounds like a valid suit with merit, don't you think?
I don't think so, because microwave cook time varies depending on the size of the microwave.
So you think this would be dismissed?
I think this will be dismissed, and I think you're banned from putting in any other links into the pop culture section.
Jackie Childs representing this,
Yeah, right. No kidding.
Yes.
I mean, what have we become? People are suing for stuff like this. It's just outrageous, but anyway.
Well, I haven't tried this. So these things are, I actually like these for backpacking. So not the mac and cheese, but it's the same exact thing as they're these microwavable plastic containers, and I actually get the Chef Boyardee version of that. And a lot of times, like if I'm just doing one night, I'll get those microwavable containers, but I'll just dump them into my cook pot on like that night and heat them up and then eat that. But you could do the same with the mac and cheese.
Yeah, that's like a Jimmy Chaga trick too. Oh, totally. Yeah, well, being lactose intolerant, that's not my go-to. You wouldn't want to be sleeping in a tent with me after I ate those.
I don't want to be sleeping with a tent with you, even if you weren't lactose intolerant. Yeah.
Oh, boy.
All right, next up, you've got Ticketmaster and Taylor Swift.
What is this?
Do you really want to talk about
Not
this?
really, but I was curious. You're the back-end guy with the computers, so how does a company not have the back-end to support a rush of ticket purchases? I don't get it.
I have this completely. I can give you the exact reason what's going on.
That's why I added it.
3 daughters. They're all Swifties. What happened is that and I did a deep dive on this. The spreadsheets involved, everything. So what they did is they gave, I think, they made assumptions. They gave out 40% of their available tickets.
To resellers?
They gave out like early access codes to.
Okay.
And
my daughter's one of them. She got taken down in the scandal.
Did she really?
Exactly. So they gave out these early access codes, and they made an assumption that, like, I guess what they did is they made an assumption that only 40% of the people that had these codes would actually go in and buy tickets. And then they also made an assumption that, like, people that bought tickets would only buy 2 tickets each. So the actual flow through for the people that had early access codes was like 100%, and they were all buying 6 tickets. So they blew through their capacity way sooner because they didn't expect that everyone that got a code would use it, but they did.
Huh. So your daughter lost her tickets? Or
lost
what?
her tickets, yeah.
Wow.
Yep.
And she still has no tickets to date.
She has no tickets.
Wow. Well, you don't have $40K to buy a ticket from a reseller?
I'm comfortable with it. It's a learning lesson. I think it's an invaluable learning lesson for her.
Yeah.
That sometimes things don't go the way you expect them to.
Sure.
And that you just can't buy it. It's not just a matter of money. She was throwing my money around, and it didn't work out so good.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And my situation is that my middle daughter got a ticket, and my oldest daughter didn't, and my youngest doesn't care, but my oldest does. So it's going to be an interesting summer.
Yeah, no kidding. A little rivalry there.
Yeah.
Huh.
And then just to wrap up this pop culture stuff, Stomp. So you made me watch this Love Island. So Stomp was texting me. He's like, you got to watch Love Island.
Oh my God, this is the worst. Have you seen this?
Sure, I've seen a little bit of it, but I've seen a little bit of everything. I've seen Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants, and I've seen Gilmore Girls. I'm a fan of all that stuff, and Mad About You. And
they're funny.
I like, so when you guys are talking about that stuff, I'm like, I've seen that. That's good. You might be nothing to be ashamed of,
I love Gilmore Girls.
Who doesn't?
Yes.
Well, this is as vapid as it gets. I mean, this is pure narcissism on display. I mean, this is by far the worst show I've seen, but that's why it's hilarious to watch.
Yeah, right.
So,
all right. So just for the listeners, so that if you haven't listened, I'll give you the 2-second breakdown. They put a bunch of single people in there. They're all damaged. They all have issues. They're in their mid-20s to their early 30s. They've all been through bad relationships, as best I can tell. Either that, or they just don't seem to be people that are like really ready for a relationship. But they put the women in one side. They put the guys in the other. They can't see each other, so the whole idea is that you're gonna fall in love with someone based on just talking to them. So they do is they go into these rooms.
That's the other one, but Love Island is visual. So
which one did you make me watch then?
Oh, did you watch the Love Is Blind?
I watched Love Is Blind, not Love Island.
Oh, dude, you dropped the ball. So
the homework assignment.
Yeah, Love Island is pure visual. Everybody there on the island is like a supermodel with like a single thought in their head, and they put these people together, and the guy walks up and he gets to pick the woman that he wants to be with. I mean, it's insane. It goes downhill from there really quickly. But yeah, you're talking about Love Is Blind, which is a whole other top
that's what I watched.
Wonderful experience if you're sitting at home bored out of your mind. Oh my God.
Anyway, well, I watched that dumb show for you. I watched 3 episodes or something. Anyway, these people are falling in love with each other. They don't even know each other. They meet each other for a week. They don't even see each other. Then they're asking to get married.
I'm proud of you.
Ridiculous.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Love Is Blind is ridiculous, but that show actually demonstrates that these people have some like basic empathy for each other and sincerity, whereas this other Love Island is devoid of all that, as far as I can tell so far.
Keith, remember when you told me if you talk too much to move it along? Stop, move it along.
All right.
I got the last casting, by the way, on Love Island. I was one step away from getting on that show one season. Like season 2, I was almost there.
Damn it. I voted for you, man.
Thank you.
Oh, man.
Yeah. They said I was. I only had a 2-pack. They needed a 6-pack.
Yeah. 2-pack. All right. Well, we have some donations. Chris donated 2. Let's see, 4 gas oil leaf blower mix. So that's pretty funny. Remember there was that rescue with the leaf blower. Mm-hmm. David Estes donated 5. Thank you, David. And Rose donated 5. She's a New Hampshire resident wannabe. So that's a shame. Maybe one of these days.
She's a wannabe?
Yeah, she wants to move up. I'm not sure exactly where she is located, but I think maybe Mass, but who knows?
I feel the same way.
Oh, well, maybe it'll happen.
Someday. Although Mrs. Mike did tell me, like, I was like, oh, we're going to move it. She's like, no, I don't think I'm going to. I'm like, we need to talk a little bit more about that.
Okay.
So we'll see. All right, so welcome to episode 84 of the Sounds Like a Search and Rescue podcast. This week, we welcome Keith Gentili. Did I get that last name correct?
Yes.
So Keith is the author of the new book, White Mountain State, a 4-year journey hiking and summiting New Hampshire's 48 highest peaks. So Keith is going to join us to talk about his new book. He's going to share his unique perspective on hiking in the White Mountains. And while Keith is here, I'm going to put him on the hot spot and ask him to advise me on my strategy for, I've got 18 remaining summits for my winter 4,000 footer list. So I'm going to ask him to help me out in making sure that my order and my plans are all set. So we'll talk the audience through that plan. So we got all this, plus we got beer, we've got kombucha, we've got a bunch of recent hikes to discuss. And I had written down that we were going to get a special appearance from the executive producer, Daphne, but Stomp is locking her out of the room. So I don't know if she'll be able to get a sniff of Keith and to make sure that he's okay or not, but it doesn't sound like it. But I'm Mike.
And I'm Stomp. Let's get started.
I say free Daphne.
That could be one of our t-shirt designs. It'll say SLASR and then on the back, free Daphne. Right? There you go.
Yes.
People will buy. That's a stocking stuffer.
Yeah, I would say so. But we got a couple of sponsors we're going to slide in here now.
Yeah, special thanks to our sponsor at Rek-lis Brewing, where you'll enjoy the best food, craft beer, and fun just 15 minutes from Franconia Notch, many 4K footers, and less than 10 minutes from the Five Corners. And, of course, we want to just say, hey, if you're hungry after your hike, head down to Spinner's Pizza. They're right off of 93 at Dascombe Road. And tell dolls and pops you're there to get your free sticker and grub.
I know that place.
Do you?
Yeah. My wife was in labor, and we had a sandwich at that place while she was in labor with my second daughter.
Oh, there you go.
We knew it was going to be a long labor. We had time to kill. We got off at Dascombe Road. We went to that pizza place.
That's funny.
And we killed about 45 minutes there.
There you go. Hey, we have a visitor. That's fantastic.
My wife's from Wilmington.
Have your baby at Spinners.
We know that area really well, and she's like, was craving it, and she's like, before I go in the hospital for a couple of days, I would love to have.
And you chose Spinners. Yeah. See, that's really funny. Small world. Yeah, that is really close to that area. I mean, we were down in North Andover before we moved up, so my wife would commute back to Spinners. That's family run, so pretty neat place. Cool.
Yeah, and Stomp, I got one other sponsor we just picked up. So our friend Shandy owns a company called Sweet Beginnings Daycare. So if you have a little kid and you want to get rid of them and have somebody watch them, Shandy will take care of it. So Sweet Beginnings Daycare, it's in the Sunapee region. And it looks like they're licensed through the state of New Hampshire. They deal with children and infant. They're pediatrics CPR certified, first aid certified, and they will be available if you want to look for some daycare for your kid. So I'll include a link in the show notes, but this place is called Sweet Beginnings Daycare.
Awesome. Thank you, Shandy, for thinking of us.
I feel like I need daycare. I want that.
Yeah, do you? Why is that? Could you explain this to us?
I just want to be taken care of.
And pampered?
Yes.
It would take you like a midday nap.
Exactly.
I hear you.
Yeah. So what are you drinking tonight, Stomp?
I got nothing. I've got a brew up in the closet upstairs that's fermenting, though. Mrs. Stomp and I put together a kit that was given to us, and the name of the brew at this point is called Baby Monster, and don't ask how that happened because we don't know. That just came out. It's Baby Monster Christmas Brew, and it should be ready by New Year's. Keith's like, get me the hell out of this basement. This guy's whacked.
No, free Daphne. Let's get free Daphne. I'm a cat guy. Yes. I think it's perfect. I think it's perfect.
Perfect. I get it.
Bring him in.
Is that a pun? Perfect.
Maybe.
Nice. What are you drinking, Keith? Anything good?
Yeah, so I'm a Southern New Hampshire guy. I live in New Boston, as I mentioned, and I brought a Southern New Hampshire beer. I brought a Spyglass Hyper Cube. It's a double IPA. It's a hazy. It's a great beer. Everything from Spyglass is fantastic.
Cool name.
I'm a very big fan of Southern New Hampshire beers these days, and I make the rounds. And it's Spyglass is since they opened, it's been great. They're moving further south though. They're on the north side of Nashua, on the Amherst side right now, but they're moving to Exit 1.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and that's kind of hurts, but I've got them in my top 3 in New Hampshire for the record. It's a really good brewery, especially if you like hazy IPAs.
Yeah.
It's one of the things they do really well. They also do porters and stouts really well.
What's number 1 and number 2?
So Modest Man has come on really strong. Based in Keene, they're opening another location in Portsmouth, and ever since they've opened, they've been great. They make a real hazy IPA, and even though I'm kind of weaning through that phase, their beer is so good. And then lately, I know Rek-lis is one of your sponsors, and they've kind of I've been going there a lot in the last few years. Instead of going further to Schilling, I've been going to Rek-lis. And,
Schilling's another good one.
Schilling's great. But I like Kettlehead and Tilton. Great brewery, great food. And because I'm always driving south from the Whites, it's a nice place to get off and head over to Kettlehead for both beer and food.
Yeah.
And it cuts my ride in half. So my post-hike meal now, when I'm finishing it, I'm halfway home, when I'm in Tilton, which is, a real game changer from like when I was writing the book and I was going to Woodstock Brewery. And that's a big upgrade, going from like a Woodstock Brewery beer to Kettlehead. And nothing against Woodstock Brewery. I mean, they do things very well. They're doing them better now than ever.
Yeah.
But, along came Rek-lis and Kettlehead, and it really were game changers for, post-hike beers. Yeah,
for sure. Wow, you know your beer.
Yeah, I could go on. There's so many. Stoneface. I love Stoneface. There's so many great breweries now. It's
too many.
It's just a wonderful time. And if I do have an extra beer, if you want one, I brought 2.
I might mooch one off.
All right, please do.
Yeah, go for it, Stomp. Yeah, matter of fact, I was gonna get a Stoneface, but I just ended up grabbing a Zero Gravity, which is in Burlington, Vermont. Sure. So I have a Conehead.
Yeah.
It's called. It's pretty good. I like it.
Great beer.
Very good. Very good.
Very good. So Stomp, recent hikes. We got a ton of stuff to talk about here.
Sure
do you want to go or do you want me to go?
I can just sort of summarize what I've been up to. We can save the Algonquin, but I actually did the Grand Traverse. What was that, over the weekend, or a couple days back? But it was the day after we did the Algonquin Traverse with Jimmy. So we had super duper snow the day before. So the next day I just had to get out because I was amped up from that hike that we did. And the Grand Traverse, people have probably heard, is an 1860 trail that connects Tecumseh to Welch Dickey. So I went to Tecumseh. I didn't have a car spot. I'm like, who cares? What's a car spot? So I ended up hiking up to the top of Tecumseh, and my knee was tweaking a bit. So I said to myself, you know what? I'm going to just scope out some recon for the old trail that goes down to Hazelton Brook, and found nothing. So I went down the Sauceman Trail over to the top of Tecumseh, and I said to myself, what would Cheswick do? And I said to myself, okay, listen, my knee's a little tweaky. Here's the deal. If somebody has broken the Grand Traverse, I'm going to do it. And sure enough, somebody had gone in, probably based upon the look of the tread and the snow depth, maybe 2 days prior. Ended up being 1 day prior. So this couple from Maine, Freeport, Maine, broke it for me. And it was a beautiful, warm, that day was so warm, it had to be up in the 50s, if I remember, the day after the Algonquin or whatnot. So it was just a great time. And I have to say, the highlight of the trip was Foss Mountain, which, if anybody's been to Mount Height on the eastern side of Mount Washington, Foss Peak or Foss Mountain is very much like that. It's a 360 panorama. It's like it's 3,300, maybe in that ballpark. It's like Chicora size. Just absolutely beautiful. absolutely beautiful. And you get this view of Welch Dickey looking south from Foss that you'll never see anywhere else. I mean, you always see Welch Dickey coming from the south, looking north, and there it is. You see the horseshoe. But from the north, it's just so beautiful. So it was a nice time. And then, of course, I got out and I put my wife to the test. I said, if she really loves me, she'll pick me up and bring me back to my truck. Yeah. She passed the test. She did. She picked me up and drove me back to my truck. What a good gal, huh?
Oh, yeah. She deserves more than a book for Christmas. More than a book. Is that in Foss? F-O-S-S, Foss?
Yes, yeah. So basically from Tecumseh, it's very interesting. You go to the antenna, the radar tower, whatever the hell they've got back there, and there's one little tree with a G and a T on it, and that's the start of it. It's not marked. It's not official. It's an abandoned trail, apparently. And then from there, it's pretty clearly marked now because some knucklehead went in there with a chainsaw and blazed the hell out of it. So that's sort of discouraging. But the next peak over is Green, which is a really neat little peak, and then Foss, and then you barrel down south towards Welch Dickey on this just beautiful sort of plateau ridge. It's just awesome. So
I don't see a Foss Mountain on the topo in Gaia, but I see Green Mountain.
He's calling BS on it.
Really?
Then I see Hogsback and then Fisher, but I don't know.
Okay,
maybe they're just named differently.
Well, from Fisher and Hogsback, it's just slightly northeast. It's right there.
How did you determine? Or how did the main couple post? Did they post on one of the trail reports? How did you know? How did you know it was them? Or
on Green Mountain, there's a register, so there's a little can.
Got it.
And I did my little classic, for a good time, call 1-800 Crushing Peaks, that routine. Awesome. And I saw it, and I was actually surprised that somebody had gone up there, but it's getting more popular. With a car spot, it's just one of the best hikes around.
Wow.
Yeah, I think that's going to be next on our list, Stomp.
Oh, yeah. I'm dying to get you out there.
Yeah.
And, of course, our Algonquin. Do you want to talk about that, Mike?
Yeah, I think so. I'll go in order. I did get out to Mount Paugus the week before. Mm-hmm. So I've done that hike before. It's a 52 with a view hike, and you can do it from a couple of different routes. I did this from Ferncroft parking lot. So basically the parking lot that you go to leave from, Whiteface, Passaconaway, Mount Hibbard is out there, and then Wanalancet is the other peak. So that whole parking lot, there's a bunch of different areas that you can go to. So I actually took the Kelly Trail. I'd read about this trail because it's is a box canyon that you go through, which is kind of a unique feature that you don't see in a lot of the New Hampshire hikes. So I took the Kelly Trail out and then connected from the west with Cabin Trail. In the past, I've done, I forget the name of the trail, but you go through Mount Mexico and there's a cave and whatnot. But I came through the Kelly Trail and then I went up sort of the west side of Paugus, and I wanted to get out, and it was a quick hike. I was done, and I think I was out of the car at like 6 in the morning, and then back in my car by 10:15 and home by noontime. So it worked out perfect. But okay views. Paugus is a little grown in on top. I definitely recommend, if you're going to do this hike and you haven't done it, do the loop. Don't leave from Ferncroft and go up Kelly. Go the other direction. I'll put my GPS on the show notes, but I think basically do the loop where you go through Mount Mexico, you go through the cave system, and then come back down Cabin Trail, and then out onto the main road.
I'll add, I think that's a really special spot. That parking lot, I would encourage anyone to hike any of those hikes from that parking lot. I think it's one of the most special places in the area, and it's to me, it's a non-White Mountains parking lot. To me, that's Lakes region in terms of parking lot. When you drive there, it's a different drive. You're not driving up through Franconia Notch. You're driving through the Lakes region. You're driving by Squam Lake. You're driving through these little lakeside villages and towns. And it's a totally different experience than going to Twin Mountain, than going to Gorham, to going to Franconia Notch. That alone, I think, is worth, an adventure. But if you add like Sunset into that parking lot, Sunset at Ferncroft is super special. The way the sun sets on it. Now, I know you were there in the morning, Mike, but if in my book, I talk a lot about hiking in the evening. I'm not an early morning guy, but that area in particular, and that parking lot, and the wildflowers, and the fields around it, and the church, it's just a postcard of central, New Hampshire Lakes region. Very different.
Yeah.
Yeah. The way I always describe it is, I say, if you want to go to a place that is just quintessential New England, driving into Ferncroft that's it right there.
Yep.
But yeah, so I did Paugus, and then after that, Stomp had been busy that week. Been a rough week, obviously. So we had just me and Jimmy Chaga were talking, and we just decided to get Stomp out hiking. So we did the Algonquin Traverse. So we would we meet at Drake's Brook trailhead?
Yep.
Stomp.
That's right.
Yeah, so we dropped a car there and then drove up Sandwich Notch Road, which was a little sketchy, but the Cherokee made it up.
Yeah, it sure did. Yeah, Sandwich Notch Road is pretty hairy, like in general. In the driest of days, it's hairy. So to add some slick ice onto it is a whole other ball game.
Yeah, exactly.
But I appreciate you guys getting me out. That was fun.
Yeah. Yeah. So there was three of us. So I don't think when was the last time we hiked? It was over a year.
Oh, right? Man. I want to say we did the Squam Traverse. That was probably the most recent thing. But
we did the stuff down by Livermore, but.
Yes, that's right. But me, you, and Jimmy, that's been a long time.
Yeah. So we got out, but we started off of Sandwich Notch Road. We drove up, started at the Algonquin Trailhead, and then went across to Jennings Peak. There was no views. It was a cloudy day, but it was more about just getting out in the trails and catching up and, having a friend day.
Yeah.
So no problem. It was a little bit windy, not a lot of views, but we made it to Jennings, and then we went to Sandwich Dome first.
Correct.
Then Jennings, then over to Noon Peak, and then out Drake's Brook, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, Spike's probably the last 10th of a mile heading up towards the top of the ridge of Algonquin Trail after you hit the call where Black Mountain Bushwhack starts. So it was a pretty cold day. I don't know. We were comparing packs. I think I put on my 40-pounder just to get a little workout, and that was a hell of a workout. You guys packed pretty light, but I think
I had the Hyperlight 55 liter, but I didn't have it full. I had everything ready, but it's pretty roomy.
Yeah, we did see some funny folks coming up. This one pair came up and they looked at us and they said, "Backpacks? What do you got backpacks for?" You're like, what in the world? They were so not prepared, because when you come down Noon Peak, it's very, very steep. You lose 1,000 feet in less than a mile or something to that nature.
The guy was like, he was like, I could never do this if I had to carry a backpack. And we were like, okay. Well.
Meanwhile, he had no spikes, nothing, and it's very slick on that side. But good stuff.
Yeah, and then I did the next day. So you did the Grand Traverse the next day. My daughter, she's going through her 4,000 footers. So Caroline, I've talked about her before. Hi, Caroline, if you're listening. She is at 22 at her 4,000 footer list. So she wanted to get another one in. Originally, we were going to do the Kinsman's. She hasn't hiked in a couple of months, and I didn't want to stretch her. So I was like, Kinman's, it's going to give us 8 or 9 miles. I was like, let me figure something else. Then I was like, maybe Liberty and Flume. It's going to be a nice day, be a little windy. Then I was like, well, let's just do Liberty and do it quick, because we're going to get home a little early. So we just went up, did Mount Liberty, hung out at the camp, the tent site for a little while, had a little snack, and then went up to the top, and then just turned around and came down. That was only her second winter hike. So we were doing a little bit of training for winter hiking, and she was dealing with the layers and spikes and the whole deal. She did good though.
Okay. Any issues with the temperature regulation?
Nothing. No. We we layered up before we got up top. The winds were probably whipping at 30, 35 miles an hour, but it was like bluebird day.
Yeah.
You could see everywhere, and she had goggles on and was fine. I had sunglasses, so it was all good.
Outstanding. Father-daughter hiking. Fantastic. Good for you. I mean it.
Yeah.
Good for you. I have 2 daughters. I think it's wonderful. How old is Caroline?
she's 20 and she's getting ready to head off to Hawaii for her so she goes to a school that doesn't have semesters. They have like 8-week terms. Okay. She's going to be working an internship type of thing in Hawaii, and she's going to be hiking in Hawaii. But I was like, let's get out at least one more time before you head out. And, she wants to learn winter hiking. And I think, she had asked to go hiking anyway, but with the events that happened recently, like it was sort of like top of her mind, I think, where she was like, really, kind of want to get out there and just sort of clear my head, because she's 20 years old, same age as Emily Sotelo and everything. So it was like it's just a rough weekend, just sort of thinking through what happened with that. Yeah, but all good. And we didn't see too many people on trail on Liberty, maybe like 3 other groups, which I was surprised. I thought we were going to see more people, but
yeah, it looks pretty sparse.
Yes.
Yeah, when you catch that summit empty, it's always nice.
Yeah.
It was unbelievable. Like I thought you could just stick your hand out and touch Mount Washington. It was just that type of day.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right. So moving on, Stomp, you want to do notable listeners, or you want to skip that for next week?
We've got a bunch here. We'll just clean the deck here. So notable listener hike of the week, tag SLASR on your adventure to be considered for SLASR's hike of the week. No guarantees you'll be plugged on the show. I love adding that. People don't realize that it's literally just me and Mike doing all this nonsense. It's getting sort of crazy at the moment. But
I can add a recent hike. You want me to throw one in there?
Yeah, of course.
If we've moved on. We have a script here.
Take it away, my friend.
Don't let the guests. So last weekend was my wedding anniversary, and Mrs. Gentili. I'll throw a lot of wife talk tonight, but
that's awesome.
Mrs. Gentili and I hiked in Acadia National Park. So I'm working on a very slow redlining of Acadia National Park, and when I say very slow, it's going to be a long time before I get there. But chipping away. It was the first time we hiked on the Schoodic Peninsula side. And we did the Harbor Trail, and we climbed up to the Anvil, what's called the Anvil. So two separate trails, both short, both, I think it might have been 6 mile, day total. But, where the mountains meet the sea. I mean, that is cool. Oh, it's so cool up there. My wife's a big ocean junkie. She likes the ocean. So this is how I steal, vert, with the missus. She doesn't even realize like she's hiking a little mountain. She just thinks she's playing around the ocean, and I'm sneaking and it counts. It's a peak. Yeah. I'm trying to do a peak a week, and then but anyways, it was really nice. The weather, we caught a nice weather window, and it's again a very special place, Acadia National Park, for hikers and for folks who like mountains and ocean. So
beautiful.
There you go.
Yeah, we got to stay in touch, Keith. So I've been wanting to do like a full deep dive episode on Acadia, but problem is, and Stomp, you may want to drop the shame clip in here. I haven't been there in like 15 years. Like I did a little bit of hiking, like when me and my wife pre-kids. We would go there, but I haven't been there in so long. I got to get out there.
Oh, yeah.
And we were going to go this summer, but I just haven't got a chance to get out there.
Yeah. So a couple of things for me is my kids have embraced it. So it's become a more regular. We used to go once a year. Now we're going twice a year. This year we went 3 times. And so we always hike something different. And of course, the mountains, for those listeners who maybe know or don't know, they're much smaller. We're talking 1,200 feet. We're talking even like this summer we hiked Cadillac Mountain. So I've driven up Cadillac Mountain for sunrise many times, but I never actually hiked up and over it. So my daughter and I hiked up and over it this year and did a ridge. And you're just walking for miles along a ridge, and the ocean's on one side and mountains on the other, and it's just this gorgeous, postcard-like New England, nautical scenery. There's between the islands and the boats and the lighthouses. There's a lot there to really, sink your teeth into. It's wonderful.
Yeah. That sounds great.
Even this time of the year, do you find that is it less crowded because the fall foliage is over, but is it still worth it in your opinion to go around this time of the year?
Oh, absolutely. And I wowould say it's like any place that, I'll use a Monadnock comparison, that's down in my neighborhood. You don't have to go up the White Dot Trail, people, and you could stay off of Main Street. Katie is the same way. Stay off of Main Street. You don't have to go look at Thunder Hole or Sand Beach. You can go to Southwest Harbor. You can go to Schoodic Peninsula. There's all these different pieces and different trails. And just like I had never heard of Foss Mountain, and now you've got my interest. Acadia is the same way. You can go, you can go swimming in a lake. You can go over to Echo Lake and climb the beach cliffs. You don't have to go do the Beehive or do Precipice, where either people are lining up for. And you don't have to do Cadillac. I had never done it, so it had been on the list.
Yeah, sure.
And it's funny because you get to the top, and it was a very interesting Mount Washington-like experience. My daughter and I had hiked, from where the wife had dropped us off. We'd hiked up there, got to the top. Went in the gift shop with our backpacks, bumped into tourists from all over the world, up on top of Cadillac. And so my daughter got to experience a little bit of that, hiker tourism, conflict. Her pack bumped into a woman literally buying postcards in the gift shop while she was trying to get her ice cream sandwich, like her cookie witch that I kept telling her, we'll get cookie witches up top, honey. It'll be great. And the woman shot her daggers, because she was sweaty and all those cliches that we enjoy and we kind of embrace. And I was thrilled that she got to experience some of that, for better and for worse, for all those reasons. And then we went on our way, and we went another 3 or 4 miles down the ridge, back where there was nobody. So yes.
Gotta love it.
Year round. And it's year round, that's the beauty. Buy the the National Park Pass, drop the $80 and go 2 or 3 times, you get your money's worth.
I gotta get going on that for sure. So, but we got you on our list to come back when we want to do a deep dive on Acadia for sure.
All right.
Yeah, and just to move it along, so notable hikes. We have Steve Summits, who did a solo Zealand Bonds Traverse, which brings him to 47 out of 48. He's almost done with the 48. Michael LaDavia, Kilburn Crags, and Schilling Brewery, of course. Jakester just tackled Mariah, bringing him up to 27 out of 48. Marita with 4 A's, 3 or 4 A's, finished the 48. Congratulations.
Congrats.
Steve Summits also finished the 48. And then last but not least, we have Full Strength Coffee, who tackled Wambeck. Pretty awesome. Good job, crew.
Very good.
Yeah. We have a new sponsor. I think this is the first time we're talking about this sponsor, but we had Bryce on recently, and he is the owner and operator of Vaucluse Gear. Basically, do you guys love back sweat or what? I love back sweat. It's so much fun. Well, here's the deal. Back sweat sucks in all types of weather and hikes. Not only is it uncomfortable, sweat is a risk factor, causing your core temperature to fluctuate if it doesn't evaporate off your back. Check out Vaucluse's Cool Dry Backpack Airflow Frame, a backpack accessory that installs on your favorite pack, size 18 liter up to 65 liter, and creates an airflow gap between you and your pack. Whether you're in hot or cold temps, even if you have a pack with a curved frame, the Cool Dry frame is a real game changer when it comes to airflow. So visit VaucluseGear.com to order a Cool Dry frame today.
Very good, Stomp. And then do we have one more?
Oh, yes. Thank you, Mike. Fieldstone Kombucha. This new format's throwing me a bit here. So New England's premier craft kombucha ships to New Hampshire. Check out Fieldstone Kombucha online for delicious seasonal flavors and a kombucha style beloved of skeptics and enthusiasts alike. And Mike is an enthusiast now.
I do like it. I feel like they saved me from my illness. I was sick, and then I was drinking the kombuchas, and I feel like it made me feel better. I don't know why.
Yeah, that's great. The perfect non-alcoholic post-hike drink, shipping available for retail and wholesale. For more info, contact Emily Sheridan at emily@fieldstonekombucha.com or visit them at www.fieldstonekombuchaco.com.
It's time for Slasher's Guest of the Week. Very cool. Very cool. Very, 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 very cool.
All right. Now we're on to Keith. This is your moment, Keith.
Oh, look at he's sharing the wealth.
You want to try the spyglass? There you go. Try the spyglass.
Oh my God, this is beautiful. I like it. Thank you, brother. I appreciate it.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome.
Awesome. All right, Stomp. So you're gonna run this show tonight.
Oh, I am.
Yep, I'm going to ask you to run the show because you were the one that got more of the book than I did.
I know. To be honest with you, the events last week sort of put a crimp in my reading time, but I did get through it, Keith. And
you did?
I did. Yeah, absolutely. I plowed through it. So we have with us tonight Keith Gentili, who just wrote a book, his first book, which is phenomenal. I really got to hand it to you. Writing a book in general is got to be one of the most challenging things ever. And it's described as a 4-year journey hiking and summiting New Hampshire's 48 highest peaks. Just to tell you a little bit more about Keith, he's a former sports writer who launched the New Boston Beacon publication. 3-time columnist of the year by the New Hampshire Press Association, and the New Hampshire Press Association themselves named Keith a serious columnist of the year in 2021, and also named the Beacon distinguished newspaper. So we're really glad to have you here, and thanks for taking the trip over to the studio. So how the heck did you hear about SLASR podcast?
Yeah, I've got a good friend of mine, a hiking partner of mine, is a SLASR head. I mean, he just is, and so I like a lot of people, I've been listening to hiking podcasts for a long time. When the Dirtbag Diaries came out, they might be the godfather of all hiking podcasts. Arguably, we all have our favorites, but I was an old Dirtbag Diaries junkie back, 15 years ago. And and then I picked up the Trail Show back in like 2012, 2013. The guys out of Boulder, and they drink a lot of beer and talk a lot of trail talk, and less gear, more beer is their motto.
Less gear, more beer.
Oh, it's great. And that great podcast. And so and this gentleman, one of my hiking partners, knew I was a bit of a hiking podcast junkie at one time in my life. And he said, I've always said there's been a void in the White Mountains that us New Hampshire hikers didn't have. We didn't have a podcast. We didn't have something to call our own. And as I wrote in my first email to you, gentlemen, I really believe you have filled that. You've done more than filled that void. You have filled it and given us hope and opportunity, and the community here in New Hampshire an opportunity. And I'm not saying that to heap praise on you. I'm saying that void was real and necessary. I'll use the comparison to the book you mentioned earlier. Either Where You'll Find Me, The Last Traverse, Ty Gagney's books. Those were necessary books for our community.
Yeah.
Just like I believe your podcast is necessary. So my hiking partner said, "Hey, I found this hiking show out of the White Mountains. We've been talking about this for years. Somebody finally did it. They're doing it." And so I picked you up, later than he did. He, took him a little while to win me over, and he's
That's like, really cool.
I think it was somewhere around like, I don't know, maybe episode 22 or something when I picked you up. I can't remember exactly. And you guys doing it weekly is a real, you guys are content creators, and as somebody who I publish a newspaper once a month. I wrote the book. I create content. It's not easy. So, cheers to you, and cheers to my hiking partner for turning me on to SLASR. So, yeah, that's how that happened. And
really kind words. I appreciate it. So,
yeah.
Talking about your Beacon, tell me about that. Is this a large staff? Is it just you? How large of a endeavor is that?
Yeah, so it's a monthly newspaper.
Yep.
We put out one issue a month. It's 24 pages. I do have a pretty good size, what I'll call contributors, folks who contribute. Yeah. I've got 5 or 6 regular staffers who write something every month for me. They edit. They contribute in any way I can get them to contribute, and then I really lean on the town, any key people in town,
Yep.
Selectmen, the rec department, the library, the churches, the historical society, the town hall, the principal, the superintendent. Everybody is either writing a column for me or contributing. The town administrator writes a column. I lean on everybody to get me information. Mm-hmm. So once a month, the readers or the residents of our town, because we send it out free to every house in town, gets it free every month. And it really is a what's going on in New Boston. But it is a newspaper. It's a community newspaper that serves the community. We don't take a stand on political issues. we're not right, we're not left, and we pride ourselves on that.
Yeah.
We're not trying to influence anyone. We're just trying to inform. And the paper's been very successful. We launched in 2018 at a time when newspapers were folding. And I got a lot of media requests that, I did kind of the circuit when people said, you're launching a newspaper in 2018, and we've been real lucky. We've won a lot of awards with the New Hampshire Press Association. You mentioned them, thank you. The New England Newspaper Association is also that's who named us a distinguished newspaper, and that's a bigger award. So much like we lost, we were distinguished newspaper is another way of saying runner up, but we lost to the Providence Journal, Providence Business Journal in Rhode Island, and it was like that. And we were the only two newspapers in New Hampshire were honored last year with that title, distinguished newspaper by the New England Press Association. The other being the Keene Sentinel, which is a really strong newspaper, and so to be in that conversation, it's
no
like
kidding.
It's like being mentioned, like being mentioned with Eric Todd Sweet in a conversation, or or being mentioned with, and if you're a hockey player, you're with Wayne Gretzky or something like that. To be, we're such a young paper. And we put out, and I did bring a couple. I'll leave you a couple.
Sure.
You can flip through it. You can use it. You can put it in maybe Daphne's litter box, if it helps. But
read it first. Don't read it first.
But it's really been, and as you gentlemen know, the work is rewarding. If the work wasn't rewarding, we wouldn't be doing it. I'm not doing it for the money, but we are profitable now. It took a little while. But we had to win over the community, and it took a while. It probably took about 6 months to get people to begin to believe what I was saying. I was very consistent from day one, and then we put out a good product. And I believe I'm my toughest, even with the book. I'm my toughest critic. I know a good story. We were from the very outset. We were looking for interesting people doing interesting things, and we wanted to tell those stories. It was these are your neighbors. They're not the enemy.
Well, that ties in nice to your story because your book starts in 2012.
Yep.
Now, were you a hiker well before 2012, or what's your hiking history?
Yeah, so I started hiking for real in college. On a spring break trip, I climbed Mount LeConte in the Great Smoky Mountain National Forest or National Park. It was 6,300 or so. I forget the exact how high it was, maybe 6,500. It was a big hike and it was a big mountain, and it really had me look at things differently. I'd climb a Monadnock, I had done local hiking and things like that. But when I did that, I said, wow, this is the greatest thing I think I've ever done. And I was, in my early 20s. I was still in college. And that kind of launched me. I climbed Katahdin in 94, and that was a big...
Which is something I've never done to date.
Katahdin?
I have not been up there. It's been more of like a logistical thing. I just can't. Okay. Just that drive, just like, that's a bit far away.
And I was young. So I was, younger. I was in my 20s, and so we climbed it. We climbed it the young, energetic way. Right from Roaring Brook parking lot, right up to Chimney Pond, right up Cathedral, across the knife edge, and then down, Helen Taylor Trail all the way. One big loop, and it was. And it was an adventure of a lifetime all in one day, and then out, it was not an overnighter. It didn't involve more than that, but that was enough. And I was kind of on my way at that point. And I would hike every year. And in 96, I put in an annual trip. And so every weekend before Memorial Day, I was going to climb something big. And I just kept building on that and building on that. And then as the story goes in the book, my mother sent me a issue of Backpacker magazine.
Yeah.
And I was flipping through it, and I came across...
A Taste of the Alps.
A Taste of the Alps.
Yeah.
And that was enough. And that really changed everything. That really did for me. And that was in 2012. So it's 10 years ago. And so the book just got published. And so this really was a 10-year... from reading A Taste of the Alps, which was the Franconia Ridge Loop, that really set me on my way on 10 years of hiking with a real purpose. And I do say this with the utmost respect for people who are hiking for other reasons, but I was hiking for joy and for recreation and for entertainment. I say this again, I wasn't... I didn't lose a spouse or a child. I wasn't, I'm not a cancer survivor. I wasn't wearing a costume. I wasn't carrying a log or a cat, or I was just hiking for fun.
Who does that?
Well, everybody on Chronicle, right? Everybody, you want to get on New Hampshire Chronicle, hike with a cat or a log, and again, and I know Sean, you've had Sean on it, and he's done a lot more than just hike with a log.
Oh yeah, he's a great guy.
Unbelievable, totally inspirational, and that's why I say, with all due respect, and I'm just out there hiking because it was something I wanted to do. And I hiked in Virginia. So I lived in Virginia in the mid 90s. And that really, hiking in Shenandoah National Park and hiking those mountains along Skyline Drive, that really fueled a lot of what I was doing. And that was all solo hiking, day and night solo hiking around Shenandoah. That really gave me a passion for summits, which was new to me too, was being up top and looking down.
Okay.
And I talk a little bit about that in the book's intro, where there was something about being up and looking down into these valleys and going, wow, there's something to this. The juice is worth the squeeze is really what I said,
Sure.
to get to the summit. And so that really, when I got back from Virginia, I moved back from Virginia in 98, got married, and really started getting out.
Okay, so let me just tell the listeners how the book's set up. So it's called White Mountain State.
Yep.
And it's by a local publisher here in New Hampshire.
Yep.
Now, you've set it up in terms of chapters, or 4 years it took you to do the 48.
Yep.
So the first year is basically your freshman experience, then sophomore, junior, senior.
Yep.
And then at the end of each chapter, you give a little cliff notes with, the most important tips you took away from it, which I found were really cool. But what you're telling me is you've been hiking for a long time.
I have, but I think that there is a real difference between hiking and climbing mountains, though. I think that would be the separation, or if we're going to draw a line,
yep,
where instead of just getting out and getting miles and getting out into nature, the 48 was the start of, we're going to go up every time, and right from the start, I did make the decision I would take what I would call either the most challenging route or the most interesting route, but it happened to take me 4 years. And so I did break it up. The book is broken up into 4 sections: freshman year, sophomore year, junior year, senior year. And the metaphor is, it was like 4 years of an education. It really was.
Yeah,
and that's where the title comes from, White Mountain State, because I really do. When I graduated at the end, our ceremony was at a high school. And at that ceremony, I thought it was going to be like a Boy Scouts type of, or a real small ceremony. They were going to hand me this diploma, the scroll. But it was really the graduation was a big deal. It was standing room only. There was 700 people there. And they call your name and you make that long walk. And it really, we were in a school and we were graduating, and I remember buying the T-shirt that day. I bought the 4,000-footer T-shirt that day.
Yeah.
And I remember saying to the woman, or at the table, saying, "Why doesn't it say class of 2015 on it?" And
no, that's funny.
And she goes, "What do you mean?" And I said, "Well, we're all part of the class of 2015. It should say class of 20. It should be noted on here."
Yeah.
And she said, "I don't really know what you're talking about with class of 2015. And I was just, and I, in my application, which is in the book, I wrote that it felt like 4 years of high school at that time. But then the more I look back on it, and between 2015, my graduation, and the book idea, 5 years passed. I never thought about writing the book while I was climbing the mountains.
Yeah.
5 years passed, and so many people had told me, you really should write this book. You really should write, you should tell your story. And I didn't want. It's not that I didn't want to. I didn't believe and I still don't believe my story special. It's not. I'm an average Joe hiker. I don't think I'm not an expert hiker. I'm not a guide. I did climb these mountains, and I've climbed the 100 highest, and I've done a lot of hiking, as a lot of people have, but I do think the book can be used in a way that it can help others, and might inspire others, but by no means am I saying do it the way I did it. It was just how I did it. Mm-hmm. But when I thought about it, I realized that it was everybody's story that I wanted to tell, that came in contact with me while I was hiking, and that's when the book idea took off.
Gotcha.
That if I can tell my hiking partners stories, and all of a sudden now you've got 4 or 5 people who were going through something. We all have our challenges in life, whether it's a divorce or children or work or buying a house or all the challenges that we all face every day. And you still get out and hike and you still prioritize it. And I felt like that could be the foundation of the book, and then more so the relationships between people. And suddenly it wasn't really a book about hiking. It was a book about people and relationships and challenges. The same way if you watch Friday Night Lights and you think it's a great TV show, well, it's not really a show about football. It's a show about people, right? It's about relationships. And that's when I realized I think I might have something. The book might actually be something I can write. And so I talked to my hiking partners, and when they signed on, that's when and it took a long time. I've used this analogy that it's kind of, I have friends who've been divorced, and divorce takes a long time, a lot longer than anyone ever expects. That's like writing a book is about. My book's published, and I still have the book trailer to do. I've got to do the Kindle. I've got to do an audio book, and it's been 2 years already. It's kind of, it just goes on and on. And but if you love it, and I do, and it's rewarding, and it's important to you. It's not necessarily work. I know that sounds cliche, but the truth is it's something I want to do and I'm invested in. And I do think there's a takeaway for people. I do think there is something, and maybe it's the cliff notes at the end. Yeah.
Well, let's start with the first year. So the first year you mentioned Franconia Ridge, that was your taste of the Alps. And this is back in 2012. And you covered peaks 1 through 8. What were your biggest takeaways during this period? I noticed personally that you did talk about solo hiking and the use of hiking partners, and then you touched upon in chapter 3 understanding that it's sort of nice to slow it down and make sure you catch all the sights that are out there. So why don't you talk about the first chapter, the first year?
Okay. So year 1 was, I made the decision to focus on Franconia Notch. I wanted to become an expert on one area. And so my goal was to wipe out Franconia Notch in the first year. And that's it. And so, I did everything but Cannon, those 4 hikes. So we started with the Franconia Ridge Loop. That was the goal. I talked about that. And then it only made sense to do Liberty and Flume next because I had this love affair with the Franconia Ridge. There were 2 more mountains on it. And we went straight up Flume Slide, and it made it as hard as we could on ourselves. And it was, and at this point, I didn't know if anyone was coming with me. So I was going to do this, and I would tell people I'm doing this, and sometimes people, I'll join you. But they weren't on board for the 48. They were on board for that day. And then it only made sense to go across the street to Kinsman, because from there you can see the Franconia Ridge. I do the Kinsmans and kind of wipe out that area. And then the last hike of my freshman year was Moosilauke, and each of the individuals who had joined me so far, everybody came on the Moosilauke hike, and I call it the Fitchburg State Hiking Club, because these were all guys I went to college with and graduated with and lived with, and it was a real experience, and we felt like a hiking club in that moment. The 4 of us did this hike, and it rained, and it was overcast, and it was a crappy day, but it was a wonderful day. And we did the Beaver Brook Trail. We took the toughest route up, in the rain, up and down that trail. In the rain. So but you add the waterfalls with the company. And getting to the top of Moosilauke or Moosilauke, I want to make sure I say that. A lot of folks are going to catch.
Just say it both ways, and you're covered.
Yeah, thank you, Mike. But this is important. It was mid to late October when we did that hike.
Okay,
we came down and we parted ways. And it was like, that's the end of the hiking season. And because at that point in my life, I was not a winter hiker.
Right, I noticed that in the book.
It wasn't on my radar, and I share that. And, we did a lot of things wrong, and we made a lot of wrong turns, and the gear, I highlight the clothes I'm wearing in those photos. And none of it was a problem. None of it was it was just what we were doing. We weren't interested in gear at that point. We were just interested in getting out and being together. Even though we were in our 40s, we were still young enough to where, we knew we were going to get up and down the mountain. We knew we were going to have a ball. We knew that there was no getting around that. but we parted ways, and I felt good. I felt good about where I was at the end of freshman year. I got to my goal at the end of freshman year, and it was like, all right, let's start thinking about the spring.
Isn't that funny? Yeah. Mike, do you have any questions at all so far?
No questions, but it is funny. I am heading up to Moosilauke tomorrow morning to meet one of my old college buddies. I'm taking him up Glencliff because he's just sort of starting his hiking. At this point, I think he's knocked off a couple of 4,000 footers, but so when you said, I hiked with my college friends up Moosilauke, I was like, I'm going tomorrow. Nice. So it's a great place to go, especially when you're in that freshman year.
Yeah, and I'll say, like, each of those hikes, there were takeaways, like, coming down. So we came down Falling Waters, and that's so steep and it's dangerous, and I write about that. But I'm glad we went that way. I'm glad we went, clockwise. I've done it both ways many times, as you guys probably have, and it's still my favorite way to go. I think to me, going up Falling Waters, while safer and more conservative, you just sacrifice all that magic, of going up the bridle path, going up to the Greenleaf, looking out. To me, that a lot of the magic in that loop is getting to see it as you ascend, get up to Lafayette, and then it's downhill.
Yeah, right.
Down the ridge.
Sure.
And you enjoy all that. Now, I know, and I'm not telling anyone out there that's the way they should do it, but I do think I would consider it, and if you feel strong enough and you trust yourself. But that takeaway coming down, Falling Waters, that's a challenge. The same way going up Flume Slide, that's a challenge.
Well, I think this is an important point that we've lost touch with over the last few years, especially, with COVID and all that. It's just your acceptance of risk, your experience levels, and this and that. In the second year of your book, you talk about group dynamics and this and that, but it's funny you say that because I was coming down Welch Dickey. Remember I texted you coming down from the Grand Traverse, Mike, and I said, Mike, I'm going to go down Welch because I just want to trigger some people. Because there's that assumption that you have to go this way. But no, it all depends upon your experience and your willingness to accept a certain level of risk.
Yeah.
And I noticed that you talk about that in the sophomore year of your book, where you start balancing out the problems with group dynamics versus solo hiking, and we've had Ty on talking about that as well. He goes into great depth talking about that. But if you could talk about that a little bit, that'd be fantastic.
So I think if you're going to climb, if you're going to set out to do the 48, and maybe you just do some of them, maybe you don't do, but if you're eventually going to finish them on whatever pace you decide to do, I think. I'm not saying anyone should, but I think you should embrace solo hiking. I really do. I think because by embracing solo hiking, you understand that you're responsible for you, and you learn things when you're alone that you don't learn when you're with others. And the noise of hiking with others is gone, and that soundtrack is replaced by your own thoughts and by the stream and by the, what might or might not happen, what you have to do. I think if you really want to become self-reliant, you should hike. I don't want to say should. You should consider hiking solo. It's still up to the individual.
Yeah.
I really, really embraced hiking solo. I'd hiked solo a lot in Virginia, out of necessity. I didn't have anyone to hike with, but I really came to embrace it. But there were times that I hiked solo and I missed my hiking partners. I cherish my hiking partners, and I write a lot about how important they are. I believe your hiking partners are your greatest set of gear. If you're hiking with people, they're more important than your hiking poles. They're more important than your outer shell. Your hiking partners are your most important. You need to rely on them and trust in them. For again, you should be happy out there. It should be fun. Now, I'm a big believer in type 2 fun. I don't talk about it that much in the book. I thought about talking about it more, but I do believe in type 2 fun. And if you're listening and you don't know what that is, type 2 fun is, this isn't fun. But then when it's over and you look back and go, boy, that was fun. That was really fun.
Yeah.
That's type 2 fun. And I do believe in that. But, so the dynamics really did take off in the second year when when my hiking friends and my college roommates and the people in the book began to buy into the 48, one by one, each of them began to buy in and say, I think this might be something I'll do. This might, I think, one of them buys in quicker, one of them slowly buys in, and one doesn't buy in until like junior year. And that really is fascinating looking back on it. And I let the reader, I don't do that much in terms of character development. I let the quotes kind of develop the characters, what people say about them, what we say about each other. You really can tell a lot about the hiking dynamics and each person's personalities based on what either they're saying or what someone's saying about them. I try and show and not tell the reader, and so when that spring hit, we got out there in April. It was like, okay, let's go get some peaks. Let's get after it. So.
Okay. Had you experienced post-holing and things like that prior?
Not prior to sophomore year. So April of the second year, we go up, and that's when it started. Yeah.
Okay. Just briefly, Mike. So what happened in your gear selections and what you packed from first year to second year?
Yeah. So when we finally experienced post-holing and ice, we went out, we all went eventually, and it's all in the book that we eventually all got our spikes and we got our snowshoes. The layering, we all did better and better. I was wearing Techwick from the start. I will say that. I was wearing Techwick and I was layering from the start. So from a clothing standpoint, I was always pretty comfortable. I'd been reading Backpacker magazine for years, and I was reading hiking books. I'd read Bill Bryson's book, and Following Atticus came out at this time, and I read that when that came out.
Great author.
Oh God,
I've actually considered trying to reach out to him to get him on, but I haven't found any contact information. So if you're listening,
Tom Ryan,
yeah, Tom is a great guy.
Newspaper man.
Yeah, he sure is. Yeah,
from one town over. I'm Holliston, Massachusetts. He was Medway, Massachusetts. His newspaper was in Newburyport, but he grew up in Medway.
And I'm the town next to Newburyport. I'm in Amesbury, so we got a bunch of connections, Storm. Make it happen.
I'm working on it.
Yeah, I don't know that he's local anymore. I mean, he does Windows of the Wild. He does William Lang shows sometimes.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, his book, by the way, this is a tangent, but his book was one of the things that I really enjoyed. I was reading everything. Yeah. And this is also part of my own personal story towards my book. I was reading everything I could read. I watched every documentary about hiking I could find on YouTube and the various stations. And I was motivated later in life to write the book because I was tired of people who weren't writers writing books about hiking. Bill Bryson, Cheryl Strayed, who both wrote good books, and I read them both, and I watched both of those movies, but they weren't hikers.
Yeah.
And then you've had people on, Ken Bossy, right? He must have said on your show 8 times, "Well, I'm not a writer. He kept saying it over and over again. I'm like, Ken, I think we hear you. And he's a hoot, and you guys know that. And I kept saying,
he's a comic.
Yeah,
he's a stand-up comic.
Yeah, I think I am a writer and I am a hiker. You know what? I think I do need to write a book and share some stories of what goes on out there. And that's why I think the book is relatable too, because I do tell the truth. It's nonfiction. This is what happened. It might be the PG-13 version of what happened out there, but it is what happened. It is the challenges that we faced. Right out of the gate in April, we go out. Yeah, we went after the Osceolas, and we had trouble. And it's the one hike in the book. We didn't hit the summit that we set out for. It only happened once, and it was that day. And we tried to get there 2 different routes, and we failed. And we ended up summiting Tecumseh that day.
Yep.
And then we went back the next week. And I think it was early May. It was like late April, early May. We got to the summit of Osceola. Still no snowshoes. We post-holed. And it was a fascinating, experience and learning. It's why it's an education. It's why they give you a diploma when you're done, because it really was, there's got to be a tool that keeps my foot from going through the snow. There must be something out there.
What could it be?
What could it be? There just has to be. And then the next hike we did Wambeck, and I write about the ice. We ran into ice, and it was. The book in its totality has these chapters on snow, on ice and rain, on hiking solo, night hiking, backpacking, when you add them all up, I really think that somebody can take away all these themes and messages and do with it what they please, of course.
Yeah.
But we were adding gear. I'll speak for myself. I was adding gear pretty regularly at that time. Yeah. I added hiking poles pretty quickly. I downsized my pack. I start with a 55. I start with the Gregory Z55 Backpack of the Year for Backpacker Magazine. And I can remember carrying it up Flume, and I had somebody say to me, "Well, that's a nice pack." I'm like, "Yeah, but it's 55 liters. I'll be back at the car in 4 hours. I don't, right. And I went to an Osprey. I went to a 33. Anyways, I was adding gear little piece by piece by piece, and it all helped. But really, like anyone will tell you, gear doesn't get you up and down the mountain. It's still decision making. It's still thinking. It's planning. I was a real junkie. One of the things looking back. And hearing my hiking partners and my wife talk about it in the interviews, they all praised me, or that's a bad word. They all reminded me how much I was reading the guides and studying the maps. And that was part of the college metaphor, going to the bookstore, buying the books, buying the maps, studying the campus routes, knowing where to park, knowing where to go, reading everything, and really planning. And I know, Mike, you're a spreadsheet guy. You're kind of an information junkie. And so I was doing that. I was really, we'd get on trail and I'd have my map around my neck. I was wearing it, in a lanyard. A lot of the pictures, you can see the map because I always wanted to know where we were, what was coming, where we came from. And, after the 48, I kind of moved on from that. Like when I did the 67 and the 100 highest, it was more like, let's see what happens. We're bushwhacking today. And I got lost a bunch of times just trying to park, trying to find the trailhead on some logging roads in Maine. And I think any of you 100 highest folks who have done the Maine six-pack know those challenges. And I was winging it a little bit more after. And it wasn't because I was ultra confident. It was, it's just a different approach. I just decided, I'm going to kind of see where it goes on this. And I will say that sophomore year really set the table. It was really it's on. And that's the first chapter's called It's On, because my hiking partners had signed on. And as we started to check off peaks, it was like, okay, what's next? Well, backpacking. So in sophomore year, we do the bonds, we do an overnighter, and things really take off, on an overnight trip. 4 guys who we all went to college together. We all kind of, we were all in each other's weddings. We all, we've helped raise each other's kids. All those relationships and bonds, no pun intended, and I mean that. And then there we were. No, I didn't mean that. On a 20-mile hike.
Mark that one, Storm.
Yeah,
I got it.
Yeah, and everything kind of came together, and so we're kind of hitting the halfway point, or working our way towards the halfway point, or my halfway point, and everything was just going really well. Where the participation was right on, the execution was right on.
Nice.
Even when it was challenging, it was fun, and I kept planning the toughest route, and that's not. We're the opposite of what hardo hikers. We're slow and methodical, and we're stopping to smell the roses, and we're hitting every pond, waterfall, every scenic vista. We're breaking. Nothing was done fast. I think. Coincidentally, my solo hikes, I moved a lot faster because I was alone. My breaks were much shorter.
Sure. Yeah, and Keith, I had just a point about the solo hiking. Is one thing I want to just remind the listeners is that not all solo hikes are equal. So there's a difference between, you got to pick your route and you got to pick your time. Like there's a big difference between going solo hiking and climbing Mount Washington and taking Nelson Crag on a Tuesday morning versus going up Tuckerman Ravine on a Saturday. So even if you are in a situation where you're in your sophomore year and you're trying to get, you're in the 20s for your 4,000 footers. If you pick a peak where you're going to go at a time where people are going to be on trail. Like you're solo hiking in the sense that you're going to be by yourself, but there's a lot of like sort of risk mitigation that you can do by picking your time and your route in an area where you know there's going to be more people there. That's not always like a popular thing. For me personally, the more experience I got when I started hiking solo pretty significantly, like I would try to find the route where I'm going to see the least amount of people. But if you're nervous about solo hiking, just keep in mind that it's not always a scenario where you're like by yourself in the middle of the woods. Like there's a lot of places you can go where you're going to see other hikers. You just have to pick the date and you have to pick the route correctly.
Yep. Yep. And I will go back to what I said earlier about that. If you're going to climb all 48, one of the reasons I think embracing solo hiking is because if you put yourself in a situation where you're relying on other people's schedule and to get you to where you want to go, that plan can bog down. And I want to say that in the most simplest way, that if it's something that you want to do and it's your goal, then solo hiking. And the advice I would give on solo hiking, to follow up Mike's point, would be, make your first solo hike a hike you've done before. Do it locally. It doesn't have to be in the White Mountains. If you live in southern New Hampshire, go climb the Uncanunic solo. Go climb, something small, whether it may be Welsh Sticky. If you've climbed Welsh Sticky with friends 3 or 4 times, go do that solo. Hike where don't make your first solo hike somewhere you don't know what's around the corner and you don't know what the effort is. It's kind of like, the first time you take your kids, your young babies out in car seats, like, what it takes to move yourself. But when you pick up children and you're moving them in all the gear and you've got the playpen over your shoulder and you got the diaper bag, you don't actually know how much energy it takes to move children and all the items. That you have to learn that, and you don't want to put yourself in a situation for the first time where you're learning, what's around the corner. So
yeah, that's a good point. Well, that takes us into the junior year because you start learning all over again, breaking into winter. So in the book, it seems like your junior year is sort of an introduction to winter hiking, and then the senior year is like the full-blown winter experience. So let's go back to the junior year and talk about your dive into winter.
Yeah, so junior year was really the year. Just like anyone, same as college, same as high school. Junior year is your big year. It's the year that you're kind of you're in it and you're all invested and you've got a way to go. But see, senior year is bittersweet. You've exit strategy. You got to think about your job. Where am I going to, what am I going to do next? So senior year has got there's this whole different feel to it. Junior year is the year. And so we were chomping at the bit to get out and do winter hiking. And luckily I had experienced some winter hiking in sophomore year, winter conditions. It just wasn't it wasn't between the vernal,
gotcha.
The winter solstice and the vernal equinox, it wasn't, so it wasn't, the AMC wouldn't recognize it as winter hiking, but we climbed the Cabot Cabin and it was snowing and it was a blizzard. We went up to Cabot. I had hiked in the snow a few times. So by the time we get to junior year, we went out January 2nd. We did the Franconia Ridge, and it was gnarly, winds and snow, and it was everything you could ask for in a winter hike. And so that time we went up Falling Waters. Mm-hmm. We were wearing spikes. We broke at Little Haystack, and we layered up. Right at tree line. We layered up. And we talked. There was 4 of us, and we talked about it. You guys ready? This is what we're going to do. We're going to get up. We're going to have 1.9 miles. We're going to hit the sign for the green butt. We're going to turn left. And these guys were new, but everybody was raring to go. And we got up there, and we caught a little sunshine. Like we caught this break in the weather, and it was almost like the fall summit type feeling. Like, oh, this isn't and then the wind came, and now we're in it, and that was a really, really nice moment where we did the ridge, and visibility got worse and worse. It was tougher to stay on trail, but. I'd done that loop a couple times at that point, so I knew where we were going. I had full confidence we were not gonna miss the left for Greenleaf, to go down.
Sure.
And that's the danger, and it's real danger.
Yep.
But there was 4 of us, and we stayed on trail. And at one point, one of the hikers, and this is not in the book, but we did have a hiker who got nervous and asked some questions, and you go through the process. Are you hungry? No. Are you thirsty? No. Are you cold? No. Do you know where you are? Yep. Okay. We all know where we are. You know what's ahead of us? Yep. Okay. All right. So visibility is a challenge. Wind, audio is a challenge because we couldn't hear each other. I said, but we got to stick together. And then as we descended from the Greenleaf Hut down, we did that follow the leader from cairn to cairn. And it was important. It was really important. We were all dialed in with each other. We had a GPS, and one of us was using it. And at one point, I made the wrong call. I went from cairn to shrub that was snow covered that looked like it was a cairn.
Sure.
And
that's all it takes.
Very quick. And so I took us off trail, but the same gentleman who had been worried earlier in the hike, he had noticed on his GPS, hey, I think we're off trail. This is showing us that we're a little north of the trail or to the right. And we just made it back. I picked the wrong cairn. We got back and made it down to Greenleaf.
What kind of conditions was it? Was it blowing snow at the time? Or?
Yeah, there were squalls.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, it was squalls, and we were socked in. So the visibility was the biggest challenge. The wind, squalls wasn't. I mean, and there's a picture in the book from that day. There's a picture in the book from the summit of Lafayette, and I didn't even need that. That hike isn't even part of my 48, but I put it in to make that point that it set the table for the winter hiking that followed.
Yeah. This is something I really want to touch upon, when the time is right, but, knowing the forecast, making sure, doing the best you can with squalls. Squalls always cause big problems up here. Yeah. Big problems.
Yeah. And we had checked it in the parking lot. We had checked it on the way up. We knew what we were going to get into, luckily. And I put the weather in the book. It's in there so people can read it. Yeah. Because we had cut and pasted it, from emails. We were emailing it to each other before we departed. Yeah. This is what we're looking at, gentlemen. Everybody feel good about it. And so from there, and I think it was March 1st, we did Eisenhower and Pierce on snowshoes. And it was a bluebird day, but we ran into some spruce traps, and that was a new experience. So I had post holed, I hit ice on different hikes, and on this hike, as we made our way around Eisenhower, going down Edmonds Path, we ran into, for me, that was a new experience.
How deep? Yeah,
we were on top. We were on top of those trees, and I'm heavy, by the way. I'm a heavy hiker. In snowshoes with my backpack, I'm 300 pounds. So, if anyone's going in, I'm going in.
It's exhausting.
Yeah.
It's absolutely exhausting.
But God, it was fun. It's wonderful. I'm glad that we experienced it. I'm glad that, because you don't know what you don't know, right? Until you actually fall. And it's in the book. Where the guy behind me's laughing at me, and then he's 5 minutes behind me, and then he goes in.
So what's the by this third year of this adventure, what's the family dynamic? Were they joining you, or were they waiting at home anxiously? What was going on then?
Yeah, so I was very fortunate that my family was supportive. They were not joining me. I was getting my kids out on smaller hikes, here and there. I would take them up to Willard. I got them up to Square Ledge across from Pinkham Notch.
Gotcha.
And then I would get them out in southern New Hampshire. So the Unkanoonics for me, Joe English Hill, Crotchet, Monadnock, all around the Monadnock region. But I wasn't taking my kids up 4,000 footers at that time. But my wife was very supportive. She knew it was important to me. She knew it was something I wanted to do. And she basically just signed off on she knew that if I was going hiking, it was going to be a full day. I'd be gone when she woke up, and I'd be home when she'd be in bed, or pretty much.
Yeah.
But as I write in the book, I always told her my route. I left it on the refrigerator. I told her the route. I told her the time of day I would be on trail and the time of day I would be in the car, and that served us well. That gave her, and I was pretty good at it. Mm-hmm. I got really good at knowing I'm going to be on trail from 11 to 7. I'll be back in the car. I'll text you. And only once, and I think it's chapter 25, in senior year, coincidentally, only once were we so far behind schedule that she got nervous and she got really worried. And it became a thing. Only once on the, there was 26 hikes. It was like hike 25 that she actually, where she got nervous. Because I was about 3 hours behind, okay. And I was never behind like that, never, because I knew what it took to get up and down.
I've been there, waiting for Mrs. Stomp to come home a couple times.
Yeah.
It's pretty nerve wracking.
Yeah, I'll tell you, the book really takes off in junior year. Junior year, so whether it's my solo hiking or it's hiking with the Fitchburg State Hiking Club, my Fitchburg State friends, and then we introduce a couple new characters in junior year, where folks that from New Boston started hiking with me, and then I did one hike with some guys friends from high school, and so I try and tell their stories, and so all of a sudden now, instead of it just being 4 people's stories you're getting in the book, that number goes to 6 really, and then in one chapter I tell the story of 2 guys I went to high school, knew in high school, and hiked with. We did isolation together, and I feel like all of those junior year stories is there's a lot of meat on that bone where there's overnights. There's one of the chapters is embracing the beauty, really embracing the beauty of the White Mountains, and finding something else out there. This, of course, is a chapter called "Embracing the Brutality."
Yes.
Because that's another piece of the Whites. But I really do think junior year, and so there's a couple of chapters that are much longer. So for the reader, I call it like a double album. It's like one of those chapters that, it's like the White Album, as it goes on. Or your
psychedelic phase.
Yeah, your double album of choice. But some of those chapters are longer because the hikes were longer and more was happening. And I try and tell the story of what happened out there. This is what took place. This is what it took for these 4 guys, in some cases it was me alone, or 2 of us, or 3 of us, whoever was on the hike. But for us to get up and get down and get back to the car.
Yep.
And it's the relationships with the mountains, the relationships with each other. I think there's a lot to look at there and see it develop over time.
So this is a good sort of lead in here, because Mike and I are doing this hike soon with pretty much new winter hikers. It's December 1st today. What are your basic tips for new winter hikers? I know you've talked about just safety, just checking in on each other and distancing and whatnot, but anything else you want to add to that?
Yeah, so I do think from a layering and a clothing standpoint, people should really understand that layering up but also layering down, and in a perfect world, on a winter hike, if you don't layer up at all or layer down at all, if you can go from the car up and down back to the car without taking anything off or putting anything on, you're really doing well, right?
You're talking about a trail runner.
Yeah, well.
A half-naked trail runner.
I would say, like with hiking with strangers, I think one of the things, or new people, for me, it's pace. I always tell people, if somebody is telling you that you're hiking at the wrong pace, or somebody else is telling you need to go faster or slower, I say
that's bad.
I say find a new hiking partner.
Yeah.
Because you got your pace. If you think you're hiking slow, well, that's wrong. You don't have a slow or a fast. You have your own pace. And you shouldn't think whether it's slow or it's fast. It should just be what you're comfortable with. It, not just your body, but your mind. Every time I did these hikes, I always looked at it as a full day. I was never in a rush to get back to the car. Why, if I'm driving that far, why do I want to go home? I would rather be in the mountains than be at home.
Yeah.
I always, in this case, now outside of the 48, there's days I do half-day hikes. Sure, of course. I might go do crotchet. I go, get up and get down. Got to get back and rake the yard, or whatever it is. Take the kids somewhere.
Yeah.
But when I was doing the 48, I made sure that we were going to spend an hour on the summit minimum.
Nice.
Oh, come on.
Smart.
You get all the way up there, and view or no view, or somewhere we'd find a spot, on the way up or way down, to just stop and enjoy the day out and each other's company. But I would tell anyone who was hiking, if you got to find the pace that suits you, and it's between the ears as much as it is your body. It's because it's got to be fun. It's got to be fun. It's supposed to be fun, and they really, And in winter, it shouldn't be about temperature. Your body warms up so fast. People shouldn't be cold. There's no reason to be cold with the kind of clothing you can buy today. So when you start to remove those challenges, okay, you're not going to be cold. You're certainly not going to be hungry. You shouldn't be thirsty, right? All of these things we can control. And so what can't we control? Well, we can't control somebody's emotional state and how they feel in their place in the pecking order. Just because you're behind someone doesn't mean you're inferior. Just because you're 100 yards behind, because someone's moving faster doesn't make them any more, stronger than you. The weakest hiker is not the one who's last. In many cases, the strongest hiker is pulling up the rear. And I write about that in the book at some points where the strongest hiker has to fall back and help the others, right? So that's what I would tell anyone. You're even though you're in a group, you're really in it on your own. You have to think about owning your own space and being responsible for yourself. And then if you can contribute to the greater good of the group, maybe you bust out a round of mini Snickers bars for everybody. Maybe you do contribute to the greater good, but the best way you can contribute to the greatest good is to just take care of yourself and be confident. And if you're not confident, you've got to tell somebody, and you've got to tell somebody when it's early. You've got to be ahead of it. If your knee, like you said recently, if your knee's acting up, you've got to tell somebody, before it's a problem. Yeah. Because you've got to talk through it. And so I do put in the book that talking about this stuff on trail, we called it trail talk, Today's trail talk. What are we? Are we gonna break down Ozzy Osbourne lyrics again? Now we've done that. What's today's trail talk gonna be? Because you've got 8 hours. You've got 8 hours to fill that soundtrack. And so you should get into you should not leave out how your body's feeling, whether it's your ankles, your knees, your hips, right? All these little things that is there any chance of anyone cramping? I've cramped plenty of times.
This is a nightmare.
Yeah. And so are you prepared, and are you prepared for it? Are you carrying, whether it's salt tablets or in my case, I would carry a hunk of ham, and it would always help me. So yes. So.
Well, this is great. Yeah. When is the book available?
It's out now. The book
is.
Yeah, sure. You can buy it at Mountain Wanderer. You can buy it at White Birch Books in North Conway. You can buy it at Gibson's in Concord. You can buy it on Amazon. You can buy it on Barnes & Noble. Yeah, so it's online, major retailers, and independent bookstores. The book is out, and
That's fantastic. All right, and again, it's White Mountain State. Mike, did you have any final questions?
I guess a couple things come to mind here. So you use this high school analogy. When you wrap up and you're at your senior year, do you feel like there was any scenarios where you were sort of at the end of it where you realize like, I sort of have a blind spot in this particular area, or I didn't really focus on, learning about one or two particular things that would have helped me? Is there any tips or tricks that you learned sort of towards the end of your journey that you look back on and say like, I wish I'd picked those up a lot earlier?
No. What I would say is I couldn't wait to get onto the New England 67. We were out. We went immediately out, all of us. And we started crushing New England 67 peaks, and it was a hoot. I mean, it was fun. We were ready to just basically, the college analogy, got our undergrad here in the White Mountains, and the New England 67 really was your master's program, longer drives, different states, some of the, like the Bigelows in Maine. Oh, God. Southwestern Vermont, Equinox, like those mountains, so different than the Whites. It was beautiful. Jay Peak, Camel's Hump, Mansfield. I'd done Mansfield a few times before, but did it differently this time. So really, it was just like, no, let's get on with the education, and then doing the New England 100 highest immediately. So it was 2 years. 2 years for the New England 67, 2016, 2017. 2 years for the 100 highest, 2018, 2019. And that was like, I don't know, PhD or doctorate, in this analogy. Because when you start bushwhacking and you're off maps and it's a totally different game, and everything going back to freshman year, now I'm in year 8, trying to find, whether it's Scar Ridge here locally or Vosper, but, the main six-pack, trying to find Elephant. I think you guys know these mountains, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And if your listeners don't, and you decide that, what's next after the 48, these are just options. And then, one of my friends is from Buffalo, one of the SLASR head that I mentioned earlier. He banged out he banged out the Adirondack 46 because he's a New Yorker. He that's what he wanted to do. I'm being from Southern New Hampshire, and I'm very New Hampshire proud. I banged out as much as I could in the Monadnock. I redlined Monadnock. I did the Wapak Trail, the Monadnock Greenway, Monadnock Sunapee Greenway, and then all of those peaks in southern New Hampshire, because I live in southern New Hampshire. And so, it's like, what's next? Well, anything can be next. Take what you learn in the Whites, where it's the gnarliest terrain, the worst weather. If you can get through that, or you choose to go through all that, then you can really take that experience, and the reward is, well, you're not going to have too much trouble in southern New Hampshire after doing all of this other stuff. So really, it was all very rewarding and worth it, because now a little longer in the tooth, looking back, these 10 years, and the book was 2 years. The book was 2 years of my life, from concept to figuring out what it was going to be. And one of the things that suffered during the creation of the book was I didn't get out as much. I certainly didn't get out, anywhere great, or as often. So I look forward to getting.
Do you ever get nervous that you're going to? That's one thing that I do. I sort of, in the back of my mind, I get fearful about, is like, am I going to get sick of this? And like, am I going to sort of mine every bit and corner of the region with hiking that I'm not going to be excited about going? Like, I haven't felt that way, and that hasn't happened to me, but I wonder, like, you've covered a little bit more territory than I have, so I'm curious about your perspective about that.
Yeah, I think it's a good question, but I think the answer is kind of, it doesn't really matter. I mean, if your adventures take you somewhere else. So my foundation in life is in sports. I've been a sports junkie my whole life. I grew up reading the Boston Globe sports page. I was a sports writer. I've worked in sports for 25 years. I work for a sports trading card company now. I've been to 10 Super Bowls, 20 All-Star. I've lived and died sports. This, what we're talking about today, took me away from that. And people would ask me, don't you care about the Patriots game tonight? Well, I do. And I apologize to listeners for taping on Thursday night. You guys can, but the point is, things replace things. Like, I don't know that you'll ever get tired of hiking with your daughters, right? That will never
That's
change. And you'll just find what So my wife and I hiking 2 weeks ago, or last week in Acadia, was really special. My wife, pushing 6 miles was a big deal. It was really cool of her. And we didn't do much elevation, but it was really special because I've hiked so many miles without her. So I guess what I would just encourage you to just follow your instinct. It doesn't really matter. You've got the show. The show might end up, might lead you to something else that takes up your time. For me, my hiking led to the book, and the book filled so much space. The newspaper fills a lot of space for me. I have a full-time job, so juggling all that and trying to get out. But I think every time you get up on a mountain, and you feel that wind and you look down, and I don't know. There's just, I think we the one thing we have in common with your listeners is you don't really have to explain it. You just know, it's where you want to be.
Yeah.
It's like, if that's where you want to be, you'll put yourself there. You will make the time the same way you always make the time for your children. You might not be able to move on to what's next until you get back out there. That's one of the challenges I had for me. At times I would run into walls, and I would tell my wife, I think I need to go hike something. I think I'm at this point where nothing else really matters, and I would go get a peak. I would go do. One of the last big hikes I did before writing the book was I did the Franconia Ridge again. The loop again, because it was chapter 1, and I wanted to refresh myself again with just that magic, what I really call the magic. And so I went and did that, and then it was almost like laying down the sword. Okay, I got to write. I have to write. But time moves, and we decide what we want to do with it. We get to fill our time with what we want to do. And if you just, I guess what I'm saying is, if you want to hike, you're going to hike, Mike. You're going to hike. And if you,
yeah, that's true. And I already have my winter hiking. I'm going to finish my winter 4,000 footers here, so I'm scheming already.
Yeah.
So for me, I like the planning piece of it. So as long as I've got like things to plan, I'll execute on them.
SLASR's hiking topic of the week.
I don't know, Stomp, do we want to get into this winter 4,000 footer topic? Are we kind of running along here, so maybe we can push that to the next episode?
It's really up to you guys. Are you in a rush? I don't mind a long episode. I really don't. Like I'll be editing tonight, but it's all good. We can touch upon
I'd say so.
Oh, I'm game. I love it. I feel honored to be a guest with you guys. And
Yeah, honestly, listeners love the long episodes, Mike. So
do we know that? That's all right. Cool.
yeah,
Cool.
yeah, for sure.
They're good. So I think I just wanted to throw this segment in here, and I figured I'd just sort of pick both of you guys' brains. So I've done you can do obviously the 4,000 footer list, which is, you can do that basically any time of the year. You do the 48 peaks, but there's another list where you can do the winter 4,000 footers, which is from whatever the winter equinox is to the spring, whatever the official winter time period is, as long as you hike the peaks in those periods. Like some people do like single season winter 4,000 footers. I'm doing mine spread out over, I don't know, it'll be 4 or 5 years now where I've really focused on it. But I wasn't formally doing these. I just happened to just string together a bunch of these peaks. And then last winter, I specifically said, I'm going to start targeting this list. So I'm now down to 18 peaks, and I've got them organized in 11 different hikes. So I wanted to kind of run through, and Stomp, I'm going to drag you along on some of these. So the first one I've got is Tecumseh. So very straightforward. That'll be, I think.
Good choice.
I'll have to bum a free meal off of you and Mrs. Stomp on that one.
Yeah, I got to say, Tecumseh, I forgot how great the view is up there. You can see Mount Washington. Yeah. You can see incredible things that it's totally worth it.
Yeah, we'll definitely. And we've hiked that together before, Stomp, too. So I'll get back to that one. The next trip I have is Passaconaway Whiteface. So, Keith, that goes back to Ferncroft, and I'll do that probably in a single hike. That'll be a long day, though. That is a tough hike. People don't talk about it that much, but just going up, I'll probably go up Whiteface and then come back down from Passaconaway.
Yeah, I would agree with that, and I think it's a wonderful hike. And you can go off the back of Whiteface if you need to get East Sleeper too, right? Like if you're working on anything else.
That's some deep country.
That's true. I don't think I'll do it this time.
So cool.
Although I do. That is an area of stringing together between Tri-Pyramids and Whiteface, Passaconaway. I haven't gone out into that area. I need to explore that, but I think I'll do that in the summer. But the next peak I've got on my list is Owl's Head. So I've only ever done Owl's Head from the Lincoln Slide. So I like to do Owl's Head from going up, Falling Waters, and then basically bushwhacking down into the Lincoln Slide, going through the Pemi. So this winter, I'll be doing Owl's Head from the traditional route, and I'll, Black Pond, and then probably take Brutus up at least one way, because I've never gone up Brutus. So I'll maybe take the slide up and then go down Brutus on the way out. But
yeah,
I'm sort of looking forward to that.
Slide's not too bad in winter.
Nope.
Yeah, not too bad.
Would you do that solo, or would you have somebody with you on that one?
I would like to do that with some people, just because it's so long.
Yeah.
And it get pretty boring solo. So I'll try to recruit somebody on that one.
It sounds perfect for like a 40-person buddy hike.
It does. I'll throw it out on the buddies. And then the next cluster I have, I'm not sure how I'm going to approach this. I have it on my list where I'm going to do Galehead and then South Twin, come in from Beaver Brook, and string those together, I guess, as an out and back. That's a long day, but that seems to make the most sense in order to get those two peaks. And then after that,
wait,
I've got to somehow get to North Twin and Heel. So I was thinking I could probably do Heel and then North Twin. So I'll have to figure that out. I could switch it up a little ways, but I don't really know how to approach those.
Are you comfortable with an overnighter? Are you comfortable winter camping and go to a shelter? Would you do that? Would you like get the Garfield shelter? You stay there, get Galehead, Garfield, and maybe South Twin all at once?
I didn't. I've done a Pemi loop, and I stayed at Liberty Springs and I stayed at Guyot, but I didn't actually look at Garfield. I saw they had tent platforms when I stopped there to get water, but do they have is it like Guyot where they have the?
Oh yeah, they have
a shelter,
and it's the newer shelter. I mean, they rebuilt it a few years ago. Yeah, that's a great place to stay. Sure.
All right, so
nice.
So I could do that, and then hit all of those through an overnight.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So I'll have to do that. I got to get to Heel, which is a pretty straightforward hike if I did that on my own.
Yeah.
I've got the Carters, which I'll do obviously in a hike. I'll probably come in from I want to redline as much as I can when I'm doing this. So I'll probably come in the side of the Imp Trail that I haven't gone on before, and then loop back down 19 Mile and do it as a little bit of a loop. But we'll see how it goes with that one. And then
I love the Imp Trail, by the way. Yeah, I mean, just throw in a testimonial that I think the Imp Face would be is a great hike. I've taken my kids to Imp Face. So, like, listeners out there, if you don't have to do a 4,000 footer, but you know what? Take your kids up to the Imp Face and look across the street and look at the presidential range and show them that view. And it's a great teaching tool because it's manageable, it's close enough. But boy, I think of all like the lower elevation views, I think Imp Face is right up there, with anything in the Whites, because you look across the street on a Bluebird day and it's bang for your buck. I mean, that's a short little hike, or you could check the mileage. But I don't want to say little. Everyone has a different idea of what's little. Yeah. But I took my daughters up there and it worked, and they were young. They were 12 and 13 or something like that. And it was in the snow. It was a winter hike, and it was wonderful. Great, great memory for me.
Yeah, Imp Face is great, and I've done that. I think I did that I did that as a sunset hike. And the sunset's not great there, but I had a beer up there, and then hiked down in the dark, and it was awesome. Yeah. And then, I think I went the long way to my father-in-law's place up in Maine. I drove back home through Evans Notch. It was a great evening. But that whole area there, like Imp Face, Pine Mountain, the views looking right at, you can grab Madison from those, which is great. But the next one I've got is a Zealand Bonds Traverse, so I'll have to get, the Zealand and then the 4 Bonds peaks, and I think I'm going to try to do that as an overnight stay at Guyote, and then, come out and I'll have to arrange a car ride somehow.
Yeah, with the road closed, extra miles with the road closed. That's, it's a long day.
Well, think of it this way, though. Actually, the last time I tried to do that was just before my hip replacement. I went out with a good buddy of mine, and I bailed out on the road because my hip was starting to kill me. But if it's a nice compressed snow, you're talking about that snowshoe superhighway, you can actually pull that off in a day, dude.
Awesome.
No question about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that. What did you call it? Say that again. Snowshoe superhighway?
Yeah, man. When it's a trough.
We call it a sidewalk. Like me and my buddy, I was like walking on a sidewalk. We call it like the sidewalk to Pierce, right? Like it's on the Crawford path, when it's all it's like walking on a sidewalk. Oh, it's like magic. No roots, no rocks. It's like walking on a sidewalk.
You can cruise.
And that's the stuff that you can tell people who are going to get who have hesitations about winter hiking. Say, well, listen, you're not going to kick any roots. You're not going to kick any rocks. There's not going to be any bugs. The leaves are off the trees. You're going to get these great views in the forest because you can see through the forest because there's no leaves.
Oh, that's amazing.
And if you dress right, minimal sweating. It's not like you're not going to have this glaze on you. And all of those little pieces to the pie chart or the cocktail, once they start to go, hey, check. Yeah, I'm still walking, the same route, and all these little things are victories, and the victories add up, right? Like,
Yeah, it's awesome. Winter's incredible.
Yeah, that's to me is like the winter hiking, especially when you get a good cover. Like you'll never hear more quiet than a winter hike. You just don't experience that sort of peace and calm like you do otherwise. Winter hike when you've got that snow cover, it's just amazing.
And don't you guys?
So when I was explaining that to my daughter this last hike, I was like, feel how quiet it is because everything is just muffled because there's snow cover on the ground.
And wouldn't you say the sky, a winter blue sky is different than a summer blue sky?
Oh, for sure.
Oh, absolutely.
That winter blue sky is so unmistakable, and especially at elevation. And I tell people, the pictures don't do it justice. And people, the pictures are gorgeous. Yeah, but, the pictures don't do it justice.
Magic.
Yeah. And then the last 4 that I have are kind of one-offs that I've got to figure out. So I've got Cabot, I've got Cannon, I've got Mariah, which are all fine, no problem. And then I have, and you can probably drop the shame thing on this, but I did a winter trip with my friend Jonathan, and I think his friend Ted went, and we were originally going to do an overnight, but the weather got crazy, and we were like, we're not going to go up to Grey Knob, and we're not going to be able to summit Adams, so we did Willie Tom Field, but we were kind of like not feeling it, and we just blew off that spur trail to Tom, and went down to just get back to get some food. So I never did Mount Tom in the winter, so I got to grab that one at some point.
Will you stay at the Cabot on your Cabot hike?
No, the place is haunted and disgusting.
No, wrong. You stay there.
First impressions.
Oh, come on. That's to me.
It's a classic.
It's a great experience. I mean, one of my hiking partners calls it the greatest shelter in the White Mountains. It's the greatest place.
Greatest shelter on earth.
Oh, it's so cool up there. That place. I'm a fan. I can't help it, and it's in the book. But we really had a great time there, and I would encourage anyone to stay there safely. If they felt comfortable. That the beds are there. The bunks are there.
And the ghosts.
I think they redid it, so I may be I may be talking about the older version of it, but I do think that they fix it up a little bit, so I could be wrong. But like that one in particular, is it the Jim Liberty cabin in Chicora?
That's on Chicora.
That skeeves me out. Yeah. I don't like that one either.
So. You're like a Kinsman Pond guy, like ornamental and beautiful. And,
the brand new one, yeah.
Like Rivendell. Like,
oh yeah. When I saw the new lean-to that they built in Guyote this summer, and I was like, ooh, I like this. But I don't sleep I don't want to sleep around people. So I want to be in the tent by myself or in my hammock by myself. Like I don't want to be in a shelter. But in the winter, my assumption is that there won't be people around, so I can have the shelter to myself.
Yep.
Or at least I can have enough distance between the other hikers, so that I feel like I'm alone.
Yep, I agree with that. And my travels very rarely have stayed anywhere where there was people. Throughout the book, all those overnights were, we either had the place to ourselves because the time of the year, day of the week.
Yep.
And now I will say, COVID changed all that. There's more people out there now than ever. In the 4,000 footer Facebook groups you were mentioning earlier, I joined both of those groups back in 2013. Mm-hmm. And I think each of them had about 3,000 people at that time. And today they have 70. The first one, Eric Bertrands, has 71,000 people. Eric's got a testimonial on the back cover of my book. And they're up to 71,000 folks in that group. And it was 10 years ago, it was 3,000. It's incredible how COVID really did change, so much up here. And
Yeah, it is. It's amazing. But, so that's my 18 peaks that I've got to get. And I think my plan is if I can knock off half of them this winter, and then I'll finish up the following winter. And I don't know, I guess I'll just keep Cannon as my final peak and just keep that tradition going, because that's where I finish my other list. So. But I appreciate the advice, guys. It's a good point. So I'll probably, I didn't even think of Garfield as a place to stay when I get out there to do the Twins and Galehead. So I'll definitely I'll reassess and try to make some plans.
Yeah, and I think Mariah is sneaky cool too. I really like Mariah.
Yeah. Oh, it's great for winter.
Yeah, for winter.
Great winter hike.
Yep, I did it in the winter. Great spot and great views. Yeah. We tried to get over to Shelburne, Mariah that day.
Yeah.
And didn't go so well. We ran into
breaking snow.
Yeah, it was not broken out, and it didn't take long. I think it was all of about 20 minutes that we gave up that very quickly. There's just no way. There's just no way.
Yeah. Well, I tell people that that trip up Rattle River to Shelburne, Mariah, if you're looking for a hike that doesn't get a lot of crowds, that's a great hike to go on. And from coming in from Route 2, and you usually won't see too many crowds. And the views on Shelburne, Mariah, I'd put those up against any other peak in the Whites.
Yep. It's a special corner too, because you're so far east and north. You're looking into Maine, right? What's next? Evans Notch. It's a very different spot. That's what makes it so cool. And I'll tell you and I write about this in the book, is that is the 48 puzzle. You really don't know what it looks like until you're done, until you've done all of it. When you're up in that corner, when you're down at Ferncroft, and you're over at Moosalak, all those different pieces. That's why. That's some of the magic when the puzzle is finally done, and you look back and you add up your adventures and everywhere it took you in the state, on trail, by car, the restaurants you ate at, and the people. I'll bring it back to people. The people that went along on your journey with you. I call it the hiking tree. Your personal hiking tree. that's when you realize how big of a thing it really can be. Now, some people can bang it out in a month. Some people bang it out, very quickly, and it's a different experience. For me, it was 4 years, and it was very special. And I think for a lot of people, in listening to you guys talk, it is a significant moment, a goal setting. You set this goal for yourself, and you do experience some hardships along the way to get there, and it's really rewarding. And I think it's important that people keep that in mind, that some things are worth working towards. They're worth waiting. If it was easy, I'll end with a cliche. If it was easy, right, everyone would do it.
Yeah, that's right. And then how do we get your book?
All right, again, so locally you can get it in North Conway at White Birch Books. You can get it in Lincoln at the Mountain Wanderer. You can get it in Concord at Gibson's. It will be in Barnes & Noble. I don't know. It's on barnesandnoble.com now. It's on amazon.com now. You can go to White Mountain State on Facebook and just drop me a note on the White Mountain State Facebook page, and I'll ship it to you myself. I would say those are probably the best options.
Excellent.
Perfect. So we'll include all those links in the show notes as well. So Keith, thank you so much for joining us. And then Stomp, do you want to say a few words to take us out?
Yes. Thank you, Keith, for showing up. I think it was a nice sort of recalibration after a really tough week and a half, 2 weeks, with the loss of one of our hiking community members. And, like I had mentioned earlier, today was the funeral, and, pretty much all of us are heartbroken. So we just wanted to skip the search and rescue section this week and go out on a quiet note. And Mrs. Stomp is just going to read a couple passages that were posted by a few listeners recently. So a moment of silence, and we'll see you guys soon.
This post is from Jen Adams. Search and rescue is a special community, a space where one experiences the dichotomy of magnificent highs and devastating lows. If you are a part of search and rescue or know someone who is, the saying of "it's okay to not be okay" holds true. It's not normal to witness some of the things we do as backcountry responders. It is normal to struggle after trying events such as these. We may have closure for loved ones, but it doesn't erase the pain of not finding someone alive. If you are struggling, please know that you are not alone, and it's okay to reach out for help to work through it. Thank you to all of the search and rescue teams and to Fish and Game. Grateful for each and every one of you. Rest in peace, Emily. This next one is by our friend Tasha Spuches. Today is a devastating and bittersweet day in the New England hiking community. Anytime someone is lost, we all try to follow along, deduce the possibilities, and the bravest of us go out to help search. We feel it deep in our souls when a fellow hiker is missing, and that is because the mountains make a family of all who traverse their trails. Each of us have pushed too hard, not turned around when we should, not had the right clothing, forgotten our headlamps, and gone out in poor conditions. That goal to summit, to check off another peak, drives us in an amazing and sometimes very dangerous way. I've made bad choices for the sake of a summit, and I'm not ashamed to say it out loud, because to do otherwise would be untrue. Emily was one of us. She had the drive, the determination, and the love of the trail. If I wasn't leaving, I'd go hike those peaks for her, but regardless, I say she's officially part of the 4K Club. I don't want to think of her last moments. I want to think about how stoked she was when she first hit the trail. That's what I'm going to focus on tonight. I'm not going to wonder about what she had in her pack or what she was wearing. I'm going to say a prayer to the mountain gods for her, send a big thank you to all who searched and brought her family some peace by bringing her home, and keep her family in my thoughts. Emily is not going to be a lesson for me. She's going to remain what she is, a member of a very badass, unique type of family that only the mountains can create. Rest high in elevation, girl. May you hike forever now.